If this was in the mortal world outside, perhaps only those thousand-year-old clans would be able to cultivate so many outstanding maids. Those female attendants and servants within the castle of his Dongbo clan were too ordinary. Many of them were like the daughters of farmers. "All right, all of you can leave now," Dongbo Shuiying instructed and prepared to go rest. Through the energy of heaven and earth, he had already understood the layout of the mansion. Previously he wasn't sure. What was the purpose of each place? Now he understood. Yes. Housekeeper Su Qin and the maids replied respectfully before retreating. When Su Qin left, a smile appeared on her face. Although this transcendent didn't seem to care about her, they would naturally develop feelings for each other after spending so much time together. This was the first time they met. She was quite satisfied with this transcendent master of hers. The next morning, Eternal Wind Knight Qiu Qi sent someone to deliver an invitation. He invited him to attend a banquet at noon at Qiu Qi mansion. The other transcendents of Tranquil Sun Province would be there. Noon of the same day, Dongbo Shuiying walked out of his mansion. With another step, his figure appeared at the entrance of Qiu Qi mansion. The guards at the entrance were not surprised at the sudden appearance of the black-robed young man. As the guards of Eternal Wind Knight's mansion, they often saw transcendence. The speed of transcendence was beyond their imagination. "Lord Dongbo, please." Immediately a guard led the way. The guard led the way, followed by the maids. Arriving at the main hall, there were already 6 transcendents seated inside. They were all seated on the floor, with a table in front of them. This was the way the Xia people ate in ancient times. In the mortal world, only a few of the more particular clans would still eat like this. For example, Dongbo Shuiying's parents were adventurers in the past, so they didn't pay much attention to it. They would sit at the same table when they ate. As for transcendence, they had long lifespans and preferred the ancient way of eating. Furthermore, they would naturally be wary of other transcendents. Sitting together for a meal would cause them to be nervous. Sitting separately would make them feel more at ease. Snow Eagle is here. The one sitting at the head of the table was Eternal Wind Knight Qiu Qi. Currently, Qiu Qi had snow-white hair and was drinking wine. He looked rather carefree and unrestrained, but there was always an indescribable sadness in his expression. "Big brother Eternal Wind," Dongbo Shuiying bowed, then looked at the other 5 transcendents. "Greetings, big brother and big sister." "Big sister?" The only female transcendent present laughed. "Snow Eagle is a newly advanced transcendent, and he is also the youngest amongst us. Is it wrong to call him big brother and big sister?" Qiu Qi said. On the left of Qiu Qi, a man with a blade on his back laughed. "That's right. However, this is the first time that little sister Ling Xu is being called big sister." Dongbo Shuiying slightly paid attention to the man with the blade on his back. One must know that all transcendents had storage treasures. Normally, weapons would be kept in the storage treasure, and with a single thought it would appear in the hands of the transcendents, and the speed would be much faster than pulling it out from the back. Hence, it was rare to see someone carrying a weapon on his back. As for the so-called familiarity with the weapon, almost all transcendents had reached power as one perfection, and there was no need for them to carry a weapon on them at all times. Usually, those who carried a weapon on their back, other than having a special hobby, would have a special secret technique. "My name is Chung Ling Xu. Next time you can just call me Sister Ling Xu. Calling me Big Sister feels weird," the female transcendent said. Her looks could only be considered average, but her personality was rather straightforward. "Sister Ling Xu," Dongbo Shuiying immediately shouted. Chung Ling Xu instantly smiled brightly. "Snow Eagle, sit down first. Let me introduce to you. In a while there will be 3 more coming, and they are all from our Tranquil Sun Province." Qiu Qi said, "We are all from the same province, so naturally we have to help each other. We are from the same transcendent organization, and we are from the same province. If we don't help each other, who will help you?" And Dongbo Shuiying nodded. He could feel the cordial atmosphere between everyone, and the leader of this group was Qiu Qi. Dongbo Shuiying felt that Qiu Qi was the kind of person who was born with the temperament of a leader, and people were willing to stand beside him. Very soon, the other 3 transcendents arrived one after another. The 10 transcendents of Tranquil Sun Province were gathered here. They were Qiuqi Bai Pengshan Dongbu Shuang Chengling Shu Dongyu Wu Kue Zongtu Ba Ming Ziche Gufeng and Hai Ruzhan. 3 of them were transcendent mages. There were 8 men and 2 women, and their ages varied. The oldest was Devil Blade Knight Pengshan, and he was already more than 1,100 years old. Everyone, please vote for me. Chapter 106. The 10 Transcendents gathered together, drinking and chatting, gradually becoming familiar with each other. Pengshan put down his cup and said with a smile, Snow Eagle, I'm the oldest here, so I'll say a few words. You have just arrived at the Xia capital. The most important thing is the upcoming transcendent battle of life and death. Haha, you are the youngest person to step into the transcendent realm in 1,000 years. Many people want to see your transcendent battle of life and death. I'm afraid even some demigods who are in seclusion might come. Demigods had long lifespans, so they rarely interfered with the affairs of ordinary transcendents. That's right. Many people think highly of you. You have to pass at least 6 rounds. Otherwise you will lose face. Zongtu said hurriedly. Don't think that 6 rounds is easy. Big Brother Eternal Wind also won 6 rounds back then. Very difficult. Qiuqi Bai nodded. Mountain Lord, he only had 3 matches in the past. The main reason was that the Infernal Palace would send out some transcendent world aboriginals towards the end. If they were not careful, they would be defeated. Furthermore, the further I go, the stronger these natives become. I can be considered to be good at fighting, but I still stopped at 6 battles. Dongbu Shuang nodded. Qiuqi Bai was indeed famous for his battle prowess. He had constantly made breakthroughs in each and every battle. Back then, the seemingly ordinary profound mystery of wind in myriad existences was able to display a relatively powerful strength. Afterward, he had even grasped the true meaning of space cleavage in one go, and his name had truly shaken the world. Little brother Snow Eagle, don't feel pressured. Try your best. Although during the transcendent battle of life and death, there will be demigods watching and helping at any time. But transcendents fight too quickly, and you might lose your life in an instant. Chengling Shu advised. Dongbu Shuang started to sweat, calling him little brother Snow Eagle. However, there was nothing for him to resist. The youngest person in this group was Chengling Shu, and she was already over 100 years old. They were even older than his grandparents. Let's do our best. Snow Eagle has awakened his primordial bloodline, so his recovery ability is extremely strong. He won't die so easily. Pengshan said, moreover, this is a rare opportunity. It's the best opportunity to obtain extraordinary contribution points. You have to grasp it well. Dongbu Shuang replied with a smile. He really wanted to go all out in the transcendent battle of life and death. Firstly, the more dazzling he was, the more attention he would receive from the highest-ranking demigods of the human race. Even if someone wanted to place a bounty on Dongbu Shuang, the bounty offered by the Bloodshed Tavern would be even more shocking. Secondly, it was to sharpen himself. Where else could he find such a low-risk opportunity to fight a transcendent? Thirdly, it was for extraordinary contribution points. 1 contribution point was equivalent to half a kilogram of origin stones. Winning the first round would give him 10 contribution points, the second round would give him 20 contribution points, and the third round would give him 40 contribution points. The number kept increasing. The most powerful person in history had passed the 11th round, and the total amount of contribution points he had obtained was more than 20,000. That was over 10,000 kilograms of origin stones. The origin stones that Elder Leijian had left behind were only about 1,000 kilograms. Of course, one could not compare to the strongest person in the history of the Xia people. In the past 10,000 years, the strongest person was Dan Qingyan. She had passed 9 rounds and earned more than 5,000 contribution points. This is the easiest way to earn contribution points. After the transcendent battle of life and death, you will need to take on many life and death training missions. For the sake of 10 contribution points, you will have to risk your life. Pengshan sighed, so if you miss this opportunity, there won't be another one in the future. Dongbu Shuang nodded his head slightly. Snow Eagle, after the transcendent battle of life and death, you will need to be careful of the natives in the infernal realm. At the same time, you will also need to be careful of human transcendence. Pengshan said. Be careful of them? Dongbu Shuang frowned. Don't tell me they will use underhanded methods? Transcendents have different personalities. Qiu Qibai said softly, there are all kinds of people. There are those who are sinister and selfish and those who are crazy. Although killing a transcendent will be investigated by the Infernal Palace, and once the truth is found, you will be sentenced to death. But you must understand, the Infernal Palace has to find out the truth first. If they don't, what can you do? Chong Ling Shu also said, that's right, those who directly want your life are rare, but those who scheme against you are very common. If you get schemed against, you can only blame yourself for not knowing the right person. Many transcendents are restricted by the rules of the Infernal Palace, but there is one place that is not restricted, and that is the Bloodshed Tavern. Qiu Qibai continued, if someone places a bounty on your life, the Bloodshed Tavern will immediately send an assassin to deal with you. Even if you ask for help and we rush over, but if he has already killed you, he will not be guilty of killing you. We are just going to let the Bloodshed Tavern do what they want? Dongbua Shuang frowned. He always felt that the Bloodshed Tavern was too tyrannical. Qiu Qibai shook his head helplessly. Let me put it this way. The Temple of the Earth God and the Bloodshed Tavern both have impressive existences from the deity world behind them. Some of the ancestors of the Xia people who entered the deity world have also spread the word that we can fall out with the Temple of the Earth God, kick the Temple of the Earth God out, and rely on another deity world power. However, we definitely cannot fall out with the Bloodshed Tavern. Dongbua Shuang was stunned. The background of the Bloodshed Tavern was really powerful. The Bloodshed Tavern is just a simple assassin mission. They have their own rules, and will not make the heavens angry. Qiu Qibai said if they want to place a bounty on you, the more monstrous you are, the more shocking the bounty would be. Thus, it is very rare for a transcendent to have a bounty on their head. Dongbua Shuang nodded. The Bloodshed Tavern was famous for being shady. The price was extremely high. Oh right, Snow Eagle. Are you interested in becoming a teacher at my Eternal Wind Academy? Qiu Qibai suddenly said, don't worry, being a teacher at Transcendent is just a title, occasionally giving some pointers. At most, we would meet some good seedlings and accept a few disciples. Our Eternal Wind Academy already has 4 transcendents, and is the strongest in the Tranquil Sun Province. Eternal Wind. Peng Shan said unhappily, you are really fast at poaching people. I haven't even started yet. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Qiu Qibai had established the Eternal Wind Academy, and Peng Shan had also established the Demon Blade Institute. Let's wait for the future. I have just become a transcendent, so I should focus on training. In the future I might become a teacher. Dongbua Shuang said, oh right, my younger brother Dongbua Qingshi is about to go to the Eternal Wind Academy. Your younger brother? That's great. Our Eternal Wind Academy welcomes all talented youngsters. Qiu Qibai laughed. Last time when I went to your place I saw your younger brother. He is a good seedling. In the entire Tranquil Sun Province, there are only 3 transcendent mages. Our Eternal Wind Academy has 2 Ziche and Old Man Hai. Don't worry, I will carefully observe your younger brother. If he is talented and hardworking enough, accepting him as a disciple is a small matter. The white-haired Old Man Hai Rujan said. Why would you accept him? Maybe he would prefer to be my disciple. Ziche Gufeng also said. Although he said that, if the 2 of them really didn't like him, they would at most accept him as a disciple in name. This could be considered as giving face to Dongbua Shuang. After all, they were all transcendents of the Tranquil Sun Province. Not to mention that Dongbua Shuang was such a monster. Everyone felt that he had a high chance of becoming a saint. The 10 transcendents drank and chatted until the sky turned dark. Only then did they disperse. Dongbua Shuang also returned to his residence. Master. The female housekeeper Su Qin was already waiting at the door. Master. The people from the Infernal Palace have been waiting for more than 2 hours. Dongbua Shuang was slightly surprised. He immediately walked towards the main hall. There was indeed a young man sitting in the hall waiting silently. When he saw Dongbua Shuang walking in, he immediately stood up and said respectfully, Greetings Lord Dongbua. I am here under orders to inquire. May I know when Lord Dongbua intends to start the Transcendent Battle of Life and Death? The Transcendent Battle of Life and Death must be carried out within a year of breaking through to the Transcendent Realm. If it exceeded a year, it would be considered as giving up. Dongbua Dongbu Shuang thought for a while, then said, half a year later. I will be participating in the transcendent battle of life and death in half a year. All right, then I will report this. The young man said. I shall not disturb you any further. Goodbye. Dongbu Shuang nodded. The infernal palace emissary immediately left. From the day he left the Black Wind Abyss, he had been calculating the time. He had to participate in the transcendent battle of life and death within a year. Now that a month had passed and he had just broken through, he had yet to cultivate his Do-Chi techniques and secret techniques. Half a year was more than enough. It's time to prepare. For the upcoming transcendent battle of life and death, Dongbu Shuang immediately decided to start cultivating tonight. Chapter 107. Night. In the secret cultivation room of the mansion, the door was lowered, and no one could enter. The secret cultivation room was so sturdy that anyone below the demigod level would not be able to move it. Even a demigod would need many times to destroy the secret cultivation room. The secret cultivation room was 20 meters wide, and there was nothing on the ground. Dongbu Shuang placed 10 fire crystal lamps in the secret cultivation room, and the secret cultivation room was brightly lit. He then sat cross-legged on the empty ground in the middle of the secret cultivation room. The ground was smooth and it was cold to sit on. With a flip of his hand, a gray pebble-like dawn stone appeared in his hand. It was the size of a palm, and it weighed about half a kilogram. Hua! Following Dongbu Shuang's movement, the dawn stone's primordial energy that had accumulated for a long period of time began to slowly flow into Dongbu Shuang's body. When the world was first formed, energy did not have any elemental attributes. This was the primordial energy of the world. Absorbing this energy had a very light burden on the Dantian's Qi-Si. And the growth of the Dantian's Qi-Si was much faster than absorbing energy from the world. From the weakest sky realm transcendence to the demigod realm, the Dawn Stone was the most important thing to them, and it had no flaws. For example, some transcendent sorcerers could concoct potions, pills, and the like which could greatly increase the speed of cultivation, but they all had flaws. It would greatly increase the difficulty of breaking through bottlenecks in the future. Those who were truly ambitious would either slowly absorb the energy of the world, or only use the Dawn Stone. For a monster like Dongbu Shuang, if he dared to use some potions or pills, he would be destroying his own future. Starfire. Within the Dantian's Qi-Si, the transcendent Qi condensed into countless starfire. The starfire revolved around it layer by layer. At this time, the primordial energy of the world surged in, and was immediately attracted by the outermost starfire Qi, and then by the innermost layer of starfire Qi. After going through layers of transformation, when it passed through the entire layer of starfire Qi, the primordial energy of the world was completely transformed into transcendent Qi. Actually, even without the starfire Qi technique, it could still be forcefully transformed. But that was too slow, and the burden on the Dantian's Qi-Si was too great. This stupid method of absorbing the energy of the world from the outside world, and even if one cultivated day and night for 800 years, one's Qi reserves would not be enough to enter the Saint Realm. Hence, the Dawn Stone was very important and the technique was also very important. His Do-Chi continued to accumulate at an astonishing speed, becoming denser and denser. After the time taken to brew a pot of tea, Dongbu Shuang felt that his Dantian's Qi high was holding up, and immediately stopped. The amount of Do-Chi I have managed to cultivate in just a short time is more than the amount of Do-Chi I have managed to cultivate in the past month. Dongbu Shuang was shocked. Of course, this was also because he did not have a good Do-Chi cultivation method for the past month. If he used the Starfire Do-Chi technique to cultivate, using origin stones and absorbing the energy of heaven and earth, the difference in the amount of Do-Chi produced was about 20 times. Next, it's time to study the secret technique. With a flip of his hand, Dongbu Shuang took out the Magic Dragon skill book. The Magic Dragon art was a top-grade technique passed down from the God realm. It was only one grade lower than a God-tier technique. He flipped through the book. Purely absorbing the energy of heaven and earth to strengthen one's body was easy to understand. But the secret technique Magic Dragon Strength was extremely complicated and difficult to understand. There were many good secret techniques, such as the Bloodshed Tavern's God-tier massacre secret technique. Each of them was extremely terrifying, and if a God-tier massacre secret technique was trained to perfection, Each of them would become a terrifying god of slaughter. But in reality, it was already very difficult to even get started. How many people could actually train a god-tier massacre secret technique to perfection? Just the magic dragon strength in his hand alone was already an extremely difficult thing to accomplish. Buzz. The golden book in his hand immediately emitted a faint light, and a three-dimensional seal appeared on top of the book. The seal was made up of tens of thousands of densely packed threads, causing Dongbo Shuang to feel dizzy just looking at it. This is only the first level of the magic dragon strength? Dongbo Shuang was somewhat speechless. This should be left to a sorcerer to figure out. Secret technique magic dragon strength. It required one to use the energy of heaven and earth to form a god seal. When these god seals fused into one's body, it would gradually change one's body, allowing one's body to become more proficient in explosive power. Although they were both sixth-grade magical beasts, the difference between a normal one and a mutated one was extremely shocking. The secret technique was to allow Dongbo Shuiying's body to gradually become special, becoming stronger and stronger. This type of god seal was also known as the magic dragon divine seal. The simplest of the god seals was this three-dimensional seal in front of him. As for the fifth-level god seal, it could directly increase one's physical strength by 6 times. Although this magic dragon divine seal was more inclined towards physical strength, with such an explosive increase in physical strength, speed, toughness, and other aspects would also increase accordingly. Isn't this god seal a little too difficult? Although Dongbo Shuang felt a headache coming on, he still focused on studying it. It was made up of tens of thousands of threads, and the level of complexity would make even a transcendent sorcerer speechless. Cultivating the secret technique required one to continuously fuse the god seals into one's body. With just a thought, the magic dragon divine seal would be formed one by one. It was impossible to copy it slowly. Thus, one had to truly comprehend it and be able to instantly condense the magic dragon divine seal one by one. Only then would one be able to successfully cultivate the first level of this secret technique. Time passed. Second after second, Dongbo Shuang focused his attention on studying this three-dimensional magic dragon divine seal. Gradually, a look of excitement appeared on his face. This was because he discovered that the tens of thousands of threads that formed the first level of the magic dragon divine seal contained some profound mysteries. These mysteries were the profound mysteries of flames of all creation. No wonder the book said that this secret technique was suitable for transcendents who cultivated the profound mysteries of flames of all creation. The profound mysteries of heaven and earth can actually be used like this? Dongbo Shuang exclaimed. This god seal had opened up a whole new world to him. The profound mysteries of the first level of the magic dragon divine seal was very simple. But by relying on these simple profound mysteries, it was able to form the god seal and even cause the human body to evolve. How inconceivable was this? Although Dongbo Shuang had also grasped the profound mysteries of water and fire of all creation, it was obvious that his usage of them was too simple. However, he understood. Even an existence who had become a god would find it difficult to create such a secret technique. Those who were able to create top-grade secret techniques were all relatively powerful existences in the divine world. Only then would they be able to use a few profound mysteries to form an extremely complicated first-level god seal. Furthermore, as the profound mysteries deepened, the god seal would also become more and more complicated. After that, there was the second level of the magic dragon divine seal, the third level, the fourth level, and even the highest level, the fifth level. Although I am far from being comparable to the supreme experts of the divine world, but I can definitely use them as a reference. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself. By using the profound mysteries of water and fire of all creation more efficiently, I can create an even more powerful spear technique. The god seal represented a whole new world. It was a world that transcendents had to look up to, but they were gradually getting closer to perfection. Following that, Dongbo Shuang stopped thinking about random things and focused on studying the first level of the magic dragon divine seal. Although he only spent 6 hours to understand the profound mysteries of using the tens of thousands of threads, understanding it did not mean that he could form the god seal with a single thought. Dongbo Shuang had tried to manipulate the heaven and earth energy from the outside world. To condense the heaven and earth energy into tens of thousands of threads, this was something he could do with his powerful soul. But to combine the tens of thousands of threads was like splitting his mind into tens of thousands of threads. It was completely messed up. I have to form it with a single thought. And I have to understand its essence. Dongbu Shuiying continued to ponder. Time passed day by day. Dongbu Shuiying would either relax or practice his spear techniques. Occasionally, he would go out to meet his friends. The rest of his time would be spent on studying the magic dragon divine seal. And at the same time, the Infernal Palace also informed all the transcendents that half a year later, Dongbu Shuiying would be participating in a transcendent battle of life and death. Dongbu Shuiying will be participating in a transcendent battle of life and death in half a year? He is the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years. The news began to circulate in the taverns and restaurants of the Xia capital. Many legend rankers knew about it and immediately spread the news by word of mouth. Many legend rankers were training and tempering themselves in the Xia capital. Normally, legend rankers would be very excited to watch a transcendent battle of life and death. To them, watching a transcendent battle of life and death was a rare opportunity. The news spread. In one of the small mansions in the Xia capital, one could tell that it was a legend ranker's mansion from the size of the mansion. Goo. Jing Qiu, who was dressed in a green dress, was sitting in the garden with an exhausted expression. Her face was a little pale, and the long period of research had made her very tired. She drank a glass of water in one go, and after putting it down, the maidservant beside her immediately refilled it. Jing Qiu rarely drank alcohol. She preferred to drink water. Master. Suddenly, a young girl ran in from outside. She was filled with excitement. You little girl, why are you so excited? Jing Qiu laughed. Master, I heard that half a year later, the transcendent Dongbu Shuiying will be participating in a transcendent battle of life and death. This is the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years. The young girl was so excited that her face was red. Jing Qiu was stunned. Dongbu Shuiying? Him? Not dead? Chapter 108. Jing Qiu had always thought that Dongbu Shuiying had died. But now, not only was he not dead, he had even become a transcendent and was about to start the transcendent battle of life and death in half a year. She had always had a special feeling for Dongbu Shuiying. She could never forget the moment when she was at her most desperate, when the black-robed youth rushed out from the explosion and protected her from the collapse of the flagstone, giving her an absolute sense of security. As an extremely intelligent and powerful legend mage, she did not fall in love with Dongbu Shuiying because of this. But at the very least, Dongbu Shuiying had left a deep mark in her heart. You said Dongbu Shuiying? He didn't die? Jing Qiu asked. Did you hear wrongly? Died? He didn't die. The young lady said doubtfully. Is it Dongbu Shuiying from the Tranquil Sun province? Jing Qiu asked again. She was worried that it was someone with the same name. However, to be known as the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years, logically speaking, it was impossible for two people with the same name to appear in the world at the same time. Yes, he is from the Tranquil Sun province. I heard that he escaped from the Black Wind Abyss about a month ago. The young lady said. He is only 28 years old this year. Wow, he is even younger than you, master. You little girl. Hearing this, Jing Qiu's heart calmed down. Seemed that she was right. It was indeed the Dongbu Shuiying that she knew of. I will go out for a while. Jing Qiu stood up. Master, do you need us to accompany you when you go out? The young lady said. Her master often researched spells. Only when she was stuck in a bottleneck would she occasionally take on some of the easier missions. Normally, she would rarely go out. As for those legend-ranked knights, most of them liked to go to pubs, restaurants and other places to drink and chat. No need. Jing Qiu casually put on a cloak and walked out of her mansion. Very quickly, she arrived at a rather lively tavern. Casually ordering a cup of fruit wine, she sat in a corner and listened to the conversations going on. Many people were chatting in the tavern. Some were talking about the life and death mission that they had just gone through, some were talking about the native creatures of a certain supernatural world, and some were talking about Dongbu Shuiying. This Dongbu Shuiying is really amazing. He's the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years. I think he'll be able to win at least 6 matches in this transcendent battle of life and death. Impressive indeed, he's only 28 years old. Amazing. I think he'll be lucky if he can win 3 matches. 3 rounds? Isn't that too little? You don't understand. Dongbo Shuiying is the youngest in 1,000 years. What does it mean to be young? This meant that he had too little combat experience. On the other hand, the cultivation time is too short. An old man gulped down a mouthful of wine, his breath reeking of alcohol. He has only cultivated for a short period of time, so his comprehension of the realms of myriad existences would be rather shallow. Those old fellows who have been stuck at the legend rank for a very long time, some of them could even be ranked in the top 10 of the Dragon Mountain list. Some of them could even be ranked in the top 3 of the Dragon Mountain list. Their realms and experience are much more formidable than Dongbo Shuiying. What the drunkard said makes sense. For Dongbo Shuiying to become a transcendent, he might have had a fortuitous encounter. His own realms and combat experience might not be that high. He didn't have many battles that he could bring out. The only battle he had was with Xiang Pengyun. I've heard that Xiang Pengyun was only ranked 500 in the Dragon Mountain list. These legend rankers were discussing amongst themselves. Normally, those who could become transcendents were ranked in the top 50 of the Dragon Mountain list. Some of them were even ranked in the top 10 or top 3. To perish together with Xiang Pengyun, who was ranked 500, was nothing much in the eyes of these legend rankers. It was only because Dongbo Shuiying was only 22 years old at that time. To be able to achieve such a feat at 22 years old would be considered a monster. However, the transcendent battle of life and death did not care if you were young or not. In the end, it still tested your strength. Therefore, being young would be at a disadvantage. Sometimes, those old fellows who were over 100 years old would be able to perform better. They are looking down on Dongbo Shuiying too much. Jing Qiu held onto her fruit wine as she listened. At that time, Dongbo Shuiying will definitely stun them. Her heart was completely leaning towards Dongbo Shuiying's side. However, Jing Qiu's rationality told her that these legend ranker suspicions were reasonable. When she first met Dongbo Shuiying, the demonic emissary that he killed was only an ordinary legend ranker. Later on, when he killed Xiang Pengyun, he was only ranked around 500. Very quickly, Jing Qiu finished her fruit wine and stood up to leave. The main reason she came here was to verify the news. From the looks of it, Dongbo Shuiying was indeed alive. Furthermore, he would be participating in the transcendent battle of life and death very soon. Half a year later. At that time, I will be able to see Dongbo Shuiying. Jing Qiu was secretly looking forward to it. Sitting in the backyard of his mansion, Dongbo Shuiying was eating snacks. At the same time, he was mobilizing the heaven and earth energy in an attempt to form the first layer of the demonic dragon divine seal. Hua! Countless threads instantly formed a three-dimensional seal and floated in front of him. This scene shocked the two maids who were serving him. However, as maids, they were still very obedient. They did not dare to make a sound and disturb their master. There are still many mistakes. Again. With a thought, Dongbo Shuiying caused the countless threads to form a three-dimensional seal. He tried again and again. A few days ago, when he was drinking with Knight Yaoblade Peng Shan in a pub, Dongbo Shuiying was very distressed. When he mentioned that he was unable to form the first layer of the divine seal, Knight Yaoblade Peng Shan laughed in surprise and said, "Since you already understand the structure of the divine seal, then just follow the secret techniques form with a single thought and try again and again. The more you try, the more you will naturally succeed. The divine seal is something created by the gods. As long as you can understand its structure, the more you try, the more you will succeed. However, if you don't understand it at all, the more you try, the more it will be useless." Knight Yaoblade Peng Shan's words caused Dongbo Shuiying to come to a sudden realization. Thus, Dongbo Shuiying started to try. He tried thousands of times. Every day, he would spend most of his time trying to form the divine seal with a single thought. Tens of thousands of threads instantly formed a three-dimensional seal. Because he understood the divine seal, the moment the seal was formed, Dongbo Shuiying understood that some of the threads had problems. He did not need to compare them one by one because the threads that had problems did not conform to the profound mystery of the flames of all creation. Because he understood the profound mystery, he instinctively made the threads conform to the profound mystery. Something is still not right. After trying tens of thousands of times, Dongbo Shuiying already had an incomparably clear picture in his mind. Forming the three-dimensional seal gradually became an instinct. First, he would completely comprehend it, then practice makes perfect, and finally it would become an instinct. Then, he would be able to form the divine seal with a single thought. Wang. At noon. With a thought, Dongbu Shuiying gathered the heaven and earth energy into tens of thousands of threads, forming a three-dimensional seal. This demonic dragon divine seal was perfect. Success. Looking at the demonic dragon divine seal hovering in front of him, Dongbu Shuiying revealed a look of joy. He hurriedly tried again, and another demonic dragon divine seal was formed. One by one, occasionally there would be mistakes. He continued to form seals one by one. After the time taken to brew a cup of tea, more and more demonic dragon divine seals were formed. There were no more mistakes. The formation of the demonic dragon divine seal had become an instinct of his. He immediately entered the secret training room. Holding a gray dawn stone in his hand, he circulated the primordial heaven and earth energy contained within it. After the primordial heaven and earth energy entered his body, it directly transformed into numerous demonic dragon divine seals. These demonic dragon divine seals directly fused with his muscles, bones, heart, blood, and every other part of his body. Gradually, his body began to undergo minute changes. Every part of his body, from the inside to the outside, was fused with the demonic dragon divine seals, undergoing minute changes. If every part of his body evolved slightly, then after his entire body evolved, his strength would increase by 20%. His speed, toughness, recovery ability, and other aspects would also increase slightly. After spending 20 hours, his body finally evolved successfully. The first stage of the demonic dragon force is completed. Dongbu Shuiying was somewhat excited. He immediately flipped open the demonic dragon force book and continued to read the second stage of the demonic dragon divine seal. Wang. A three-dimensional seal formed from over 20,000 threads floated above the book. Dongbu Shuiying looked at it and pondered. So complicated. The more Dongbu Shuiying looked at it, the more difficult it became. After studying the second stage of the demonic dragon divine seal for 5 days, Dongbu Shuiying vaguely understood that his current attainment in the profound mystery of the flames of all creation was still relatively low. If he wanted to understand the second stage of the demonic dragon divine seal, he would not be able to do so in a year or so. If he could not even understand it, then it was even more impossible for him to form it with a single thought. When he tried to form it again and again, it was a mess every time. I'll give up for now. The demonic dragon divine seal is a god's incomparably exquisite use of the profound mystery of the flames of all creation. Dongbu Shuiying thought to himself, my spear art should also be more exquisite in making use of the profound mystery of the water and fire of all creation. Spear arts were abstruse beyond abstruse. If it was a god's seal, it could still be manifested through seals. But when it came to spear arts in battle, it would be very hard to directly express it. Even if it was a spear art created by some senior transcendents, it was still the experience and path of the seniors. If one were to observe the spear arts of the seniors when they were still very young, it would be very easy for one to be lured onto the wrong path. The path of transcendence had to be taken one step at a time, and one had to ponder on it step by step. After condensing the true meaning, one's own path would be stable enough. Only then would one look at the spear arts and saber arts of the other seniors and use them as reference. Only then would one's heart not be shaken. In history, there were even experts who had condensed their true meaning, but they were all led astray by the seniors. Furthermore, the seniors were not able to directly express their own comprehensions. They were all practicing the spear arts and saber arts. Just by observing the practice, one would at most be able to see the surface of it. If one were to walk on the wrong path because of this surface, it would be too late for regrets. Hence, one could only ponder on everything by oneself. Even if one was wrong, one would be able to understand where the mistake was and quickly correct it. Chapter 109. Immersed in his spear arts, time passed by quickly. The atmosphere of cultivation in the Xia capital was very good. There were many transcendents gathered here. Usually, when he was relaxing, Dongbu Shuiying would go to the taverns with his friends to drink and eat rare delicacies in restaurants. Other than the transcendents from the Tranquil Sun province, Dongbu Shuiying also got to know many other transcendents. Through chatting, he was able to understand more and more information. Although the Infernal Palace sent people to deliver books that recorded many general knowledge, There were still some things that were not in the books. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed. Hoo, heavy snow fell. Within the training grounds of Dongbu Shuiying's residence, there was a thick layer of snow. Dongbu Shuiying's body was like a dragon, wielding the black dragon spear, displaying his spear arts. At this moment, his mood was very good because of the snow. Back in his hometown, Azure River County, because it was located in the north, snow was very common. However, in the infernal world, the climate here was suitable for living. Only during winter would there be heavy snow. Meeting heavy snow was very rare. Suddenly, Dongbu Shuiying stopped, his eyes blazing. Water and fire can definitely coexist. My idea of this move will definitely come true. With the inspiration from the magic dragon divine seal, Dongbu Shuiying wanted to use the profound mysteries of water and fire more intricately. As he practiced his spear arts, the power of his spear arts had indeed increased by 10 to 20%. However, one day 3 months ago when he was practicing, he suddenly felt, when the spear strikes, it is like a flood dragon coming out of the water. The rotational force is strange and unpredictable. However, the profound mystery of fire of myriad existences can explode in an instant. If I can gather this rotational force and use the profound mystery of fire to explode in an instant, then the power of this move will far surpass any of my moves. This move, first use the water of myriad existences, then use the fire of myriad existences. Instantaneous conversion. This was extremely difficult, but Dongbu Shuiying felt that he should be able to succeed. Because the water of myriad existences and the fire of myriad existences had many similarities. In the underground hall of the Black Wind Temple, before he became a transcendent, his water of myriad existences and fire of myriad existences had some similarities. 3 months had passed since he started trying, and he had been making progress, which filled him with confidence. Winning one more match in the transcendent battle of life and death was a small matter. What mattered the most was one's own strength. Therefore, even though the date of the transcendent battle of life and death was getting closer, he was still neither arrogant nor rash. Boom! Boom! The shaft of the black dragon spear was like a huge dragon, and under the control of Dongbu Shuiying's strength, the shaft of the black dragon spear formed an arc as it spun and stabbed forward. As it spun, the spear shaft was surrounded by a turbulent flow of water. At the last moment, the spear stabbed out, water and fire interchanged. The rotational force of the water would all converge, and then explode in an instant. The moment the long spear stabbed out, flames erupted. Its power was ferocious. The transformation between water and fire is not natural enough. The force of the water's rotation was not perfectly transferred into the explosive force of the fire. Dongbu Shuiying shook his head. It was snowing heavily. Dongbu Shuiying was practicing his spear technique on the training field. Buzz. It was not as violent as before. Instead, it was a low buzzing sound. The spear turned from a spiraling dragon to an explosive force, as though a dragon had shot out from the water and soared into the sky. The piercing force of the spear's rotation formed a spiraling wave visible to the naked eye. A finger-thick spiraling wave of air directly pierced through the heaven and earth energy that Dongbu Shuiying had gathered around him. I actually can't block it. Dongbu Shuiying immediately controlled the heaven and earth energy around him, forming layers of water to block it. This was just the airwave produced by a single stab. Furthermore, because it was just an attempt, Dongbu Shuiying did not use much strength. Usually, when he cultivated, he would be able to block the shockwaves by using the heaven and earth energy to block them. Even if some of the shockwaves hit the wall, it would not be a big deal. But this bizarre spiraling wave of air was extremely powerful, and its penetrative force was shocking as well. Dongbu Shuiying used the heaven and earth water energy to block it. The airwave still flew for over 100 meters before it was completely blocked. Good fella! Dongbu Shuiying exclaimed. Its power is truly great. Weapons and secret techniques are not as important as one's realm in influencing one's strength. Dongbu Shuiying was extremely excited. He had succeeded. He had finally mastered this move that he had been painstakingly studying. Weapons were important, but secret techniques were even more important. But what was the true core of a transcendent? What was the key? It was the realm. To cultivate a secret technique to a profound level, one's realm had to be high enough. To cultivate battle chi further, One's realm had to be high enough, for example, to become a demigod. Even the weakest demigod had condensed a true meaning. At the same time, the realm itself had an even greater influence on one's strength. For example, Eternal Wind Knight Xiu Qi Bai. In terms of body and battle qi, he was very ordinary. In terms of secret techniques, he could not even compare to the Bloodshed Tavern, Temple of the Earth God or demonic faction. However, he was the undisputed #1 on the Saint board and had even killed a demigod native from a transcendent world. He had even defeated a famous human demigod expert. It was because his realm was high enough. He had grasped the true meaning of space cleavage. When Dongbu Shuang killed Xiang Pengyun, he was at the most basic level of the realm of myriad existences. After that, he had spent 6 years in the underground. After the fusion of fire and water, the fire of myriad existences had improved. At the same time, he had comprehended the profound mystery of water of myriad existences. At this moment, his comprehension of the fusion of fire and water of myriad existences had deepened, and he had even created this killing technique. Let's go to the training room and try it out. Dongbu Shuang immediately headed to the training room. Only there could he display his full strength to the fullest. Within the training room, 10 fire crystal lamps were lit up. Dongbu Shuang held the black dragon spear in his hands. Hong, a faint red aura appeared on the surface of his body. His power bloodline had also erupted. Kill. Dongbu Shuang used all his strength. Wang, it was still a low sound. The spear stabbed out like a water dragon. The powerful rotational force caused the spear's speed to become even faster. The rotational force naturally gathered at the tip of the spear. At the moment of perfect convergence, the extreme yin turned into extreme yang, and the spear seemed to have transformed into a flaming dragon. Smite was extremely shocking. When the spear tip stabbed out, it created a shockwave that was as thick as an arm. Evidently, after the strength of the shockwave increased, the vibrations in the air became much stronger as well. This shockwave that was as thick as an arm was shockingly powerful. The speed of the shockwave was extremely fast as well, and it directly smashed against the walls of the training room. Ripples appeared on the walls, dissipating the force of the shockwave. This move, in terms of ferocity, is at least 30% stronger than the extreme violent spear art that was executed using the profound mystery of fire of myriad existences. As for the strange rotational force, it should be at least 30% stronger than the water of myriad existences. Dongbu Shuang estimated. The spear arts of the past. The water of myriad existences was strange and soft, but it lacked power. The fire of myriad existences was extremely powerful, but it was too ferocious and clumsy. Right now, this move possessed the advantages of both. In fact, it was even stronger than both. Such a move would definitely cause Dongbu Shuang's strength to double. This killing move, I shall call it. When Dongbu Shuang executed it, it was as though a flood dragon had transformed into a fire flood dragon. Water and fire flood dragon kill. After Dongbu Shuang comprehended the profound mysteries of heaven and earth, the first killing move he comprehended was created on the very first snowy day. He arrived at the Xia capital of the infernal realm. Although it was still very simple when compared to the magic dragon divine seal, it was already an ingenious use of the profound mysteries. Furthermore, it was a fusion of two profound mysteries. It could be considered extraordinary, and this move of mine can still be improved upon. After creating the move, Dongbu Shuang discovered it. I can make the fusion of water and fire even more perfect. The profound mysteries of heaven and earth contained everything. All profound mysteries belong to the laws of heaven and earth. Thus, all sorts of profound mysteries could be fused together perfectly. Naturally, water and fire could be fused together perfectly as well, or even become one. Right now, Dongbu Shuang could only fuse the two together in a simpler manner. Within the Xia capital, in the taverns and restaurants, many places were discussing the same thing. The transcendent battle of life and death that was about to begin. Gengqing, you actually came to the infernal realm? You haven't been here for almost 100 years. Haha, I heard that the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years is about to begin his transcendent battle of life and death. How could I miss such an event? No wonder I knew it. But Gengqing, how many matches do you think this Dongbu Shuang kid can win in the transcendent battle of life and death? It's hard to say. He's too young. I think he should be able to win 3 matches. Maybe 4 or 5. 6 matches would be very dangerous. Currently, in the Xia capital, many transcendents rarely met each other. Most of them would talk about Dongbo Shuiying, the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years. His transcendent battle of life and death. The attraction was very big. Actually, even an ordinary transcendent battle of life and death would attract many people. After all, even transcendents like to join in on the fun. Night. In the back garden, Dongbo Shuiying was drinking alone, looking at the bright moon in the sky. Currently, countless people in the Xia capital were looking forward to tomorrow, because tomorrow would be Dongbo Shuiying's transcendent battle of life and death. At that time, many mortals like the female housekeeper Su Qin would be there to watch. Tomorrow, Dongbo Shuiying whispered to himself. Then he grinned. I hope it won't be too embarrassing. Chapter 110. Dragon Mountain Calendar Year 9637, January 18th Morning. Qiuqi Bai Pengshan Chengling Shu, Dongyu Wu Kue Ziche Gufeng, and the rest of the transcendents from Tranquil Sun Province arrived at Dongbo Shuiying's residence. Brother Snow Eagle, why are you still so calm? Drinking alone? The sturdiest Ba Ming exclaimed in surprise. How am I calm? I'm more nervous. Dongbo Shuiying laughed. If I didn't care about anything, I would have slept until now. Actually, to transcendents, sleep was not necessary. It was just that after sleeping, they could relax and recover their mental energy. Hence, many transcendents would sleep frequently. It doesn't matter if you're nervous or not. This transcendent battle of life and death cannot be avoided. Let's go. We will accompany you to the Infernal Palace's Hall of Life and Death. Qiuqi Bai said. Chengling Shu also said, Brother Snow Eagle, I won 2 rounds back then and lost on the 3rd round. However, I believe that you will definitely win at least 7 rounds. Haha, you're even stronger than Brother Changfeng. Peng Shan also hurriedly said. Snow Eagle, Sister Ling Shu specially bet on you. She bet that you will definitely win at least 6 rounds. Bet? Dongbo Shuiying looked at Chengling Shu in shock. Sister Ling Shu, you're still betting. Mages were usually very rational. Chengling Shu was a female transcendent mage, yet she was betting? Just playing, just playing. Chengling Shu purposely said shyly. Occasionally betting is very interesting. I bet that you will win at least 6 rounds. You have to win at least 7 rounds before I can win. At least 7 rounds. I'm not confident. Dongbo Shuiying said. AI, there's no other way. The other payout rates are too low, and placing a single bet on one of the rounds is too risky. Hence, I bet on you winning at least 6 rounds. Chengling Shu looked at Dongbo Shuiying in anticipation. Brother Snow Eagle, I believe that you can do it. The group of people chatted. It's about time. Let's go. Qiuqi Bai said. And let's go to the Infernal Palace. Everyone stood up and walked out of the hall. Dongbo Shuiying turned to the female housekeeper Su Qin and said, Leave a few guards in the residence today. Those who wish to watch the battle are free to do so. Thank you, Master. Su Qin immediately said excitedly. Let's go. After Dongbo Shuiying and the other transcendents left the mansion, they immediately flew towards the Infernal Palace. Flying high up in the sky, Xiao Chun could see with a single glance that the closer he got to the Infernal Palace, the more ferocious the flow of people became. Countless people were rushing towards the Infernal Palace. I don't usually see so many people in the Xia capital. Dongbo Shuiying looked down and exclaimed, There are many mortals. Peng Shan said, I'm afraid that more than half of the mortals in the Xia capital will rush to the Hall of Life and Death to watch this battle. To them, being able to witness a life and death battle between transcendents is already worth it. Their masters, whether they are transcendents or legend rankers, would normally allow their maids and servants to go out and watch the battle. Ziche Gufeng and the other transcendents all smiled. This was a rare event. The mortals who are able to live in the Xia capital are considered to be lucky. Many mortals in the outside world have never seen a transcendent before. But the mortals in the Xia capital are able to see transcendents frequently, and even watch the transcendent battle of life and death. Zone 2 evaluated. Dongbo Shuiying nodded his head. The transcendent battle of life and death was usually held once every few years. If it was short, it would be once every 1 or 2 years. If it was long, it would be hard for it to exceed 5 years. It's just that Snow Eagle, you are the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years. Hence, the attraction is much greater. It is said that many transcendents from the outside world have come to the Infernal Palace. Because there are a lot of transcendents coming, many of them want to gather with their transcendents friends, so they will rush back. Qiu Qibai said, I reckon that 70 to 80% of the spectators this time are transcendents. During the conversation, Dongbu Shuiying and the rest flew to the Infernal Palace. The Infernal Palace was located in the center of the Xia capital. It occupied a huge area and had many halls. Among them, the Hall of Life and Death was specially used for the transcendent battle of life and death. Who, as transcendents, they could directly enter the Hall of Life and Death from the main entrance. What a huge battle arena! After Dongbu Shuiying entered, he immediately saw the huge arena in the middle of the vast Hall of Life and Death. The huge arena was about 2 to 3 miles wide, and it was decorated with mountains. There were even streams flowing around it. The arena in the middle was only so big. The spectator area was even bigger. The eastern arena was extremely spacious, and only transcendents could enter. The western arena was for mortals to sit and watch. The mortals were densely packed, and the 3 to 4 miles wide arena was enough to accommodate over 1 million people. At the very least, the mortals in the Xia capital were able to sit down. Snow Eagle, follow me. Qiu Qibai led Dongbu Shuiying. I will bring you to meet the faction head. Faction head? Dongbu Shuiying immediately understood and followed behind. Because only transcendents were allowed to watch the battle from the east side, there were very few spectators. Most of them were on good terms with each other. Dongbu Shuiying soon saw 2 figures sitting in front of him. Greetings, faction head, Mountain Lord He. Qiu Qibai bowed slightly. Dongbu Shuiying followed suit and bowed. It's Eternal Wind. The faction head glanced at Qiu Qibai before his gaze landed on Dongbu Shuiying. His gaze was as calm as the sea. Dongbu Shuiying felt an invisible pressure. Demigod rank 5. Si Kongyang. Water Taoist faction head. Condensed a true deity heart. One had to know that among the humans, natives of the transcendent world, and the beast race, there were only 4 demigods who could condense a true deity heart. His faction head Si Kongyang was one of them. Si Kongyang's entire body was like a sun, emitting light and heat, making it hard for others to look at him directly. And beside him was Mountain Lord He, who was publicly recognized as the #1 under the heavens. Mountain Lord He gave off a feeling that one could not see the end of the mountain range. It was distant, but it didn't make people feel too pressured. Dongbu Shuiying, faction head Si Kongyang said, there are many demigods who came to spectate this time. They all want to see how many battles the youngest transcendent in 1,000 years can win. I'm also very curious. Dongbu Shuiying will naturally do his best. Dongbu Shuiying said, go. Prepare well. You will have to enter the arena soon. Si Kongyang said. Mountain Lord He didn't say anything, but he also smiled as he watched. Actually, to these high and mighty demigods, there was a limit to how much they valued these monstrous geniuses. This was because the lifespan of a demigod was 3,000 years. In these 3,000 years, there were still quite a few of these monstrous geniuses. But in reality, the majority of those who became demigods were transcendents who seemed to be low-key. No matter how monstrous they were at the beginning, the most they could say was that they had a high chance of entering the saint realm. As for demigods, that was too difficult. For example, Qiu Qibai was the #1 on the saint rankings and had even defeated human demigods. His position was very high. Logically speaking, he didn't need to be so close to Dongbu Shuiying. However, Qiu Qibai didn't care. He had a good relationship with the transcendents of the Tranquil Sun Province, causing the 9 transcendents of the Tranquil Sun Province to admire and respect Qiu Qibai. Although Qiu Qibai was currently at the peak of the saint realm, he already had the strength of a demigod. In the future, he would be regarded as the #1 under the heavens. A large number of mortals entered the arena and sat down. Jing Qiu and a few familiar legend rankers also entered the arena and sat down. They were all sitting on the west side, so they couldn't see the transcendents in the east. There was a layer of invisible energy blocking their view. Sister Jing Qiu, Dongbu Shuiying is from our Tranquil Sun Province. You and him are both from the Azure River County. The legend rankers by the side said. Jing Qiu smiled. She was also very nervous. She was waiting for Ying to enter the arena below. Chapter 111. In the eastern region of the Hall of Life and Death, more and more transcendents arrived. Even demigods appeared. A bald, skinny old man walked slowly. Brother Chow. Faction head Si Kongyang saw a skinny old man and immediately stood up. Although he was the faction head of the Water Taoist faction and one of the top 3 experts of the human race, Chao Qing was still a demigod. When he was weak, Chao Qing was already a demigod that could destroy the heavens and earth. Moreover, Chao Qing thought highly of him and even saved his life. Therefore, Si Kongyang had always respected Chao Qing. Faction head. Chao Qing's wrinkled face cracked into a smile. He nodded slightly but did not walk over. Instead, he walked in another direction. Ying and the other 10 transcendents from the Tranquil Sun province were chatting. Suddenly, they saw Vice Faction head Chao Qing and hurriedly stood up. Sit. Chao Qing laughed and his gaze landed on Ying. Kid, don't embarrass our Water Taoist faction. At least win the first 3 matches. Of course, it would be best if you win 8 or 9 matches. Yes. Ying replied. Chao Qing did not walk over. Instead, he continued walking away. In the corner of the eastern region, sat a hunchbacked old lady. This hunchbacked old lady was surrounded by a thin layer of blood-red mist. No transcendents dared to approach within 10 meters of her. However, old man Chao Qing walked over directly. The blood-red fog automatically made way for him, allowing old man Chao Qing to sit beside the hunchbacked old lady. Beauty, you're here too. Old man Chao Qing smiled. A hunchbacked old lady full of wrinkles was called a beauty. It was indeed interesting. However, if one looked closely at the old lady's face, one could vaguely tell that she was very beautiful when she was young. She was ranked 10th on the demigod list, killing God Yimei, the leader of the Bloodshed Tavern, the #1 assassin in the world. She was also the only one among the top 10 of the demigod list, the Temple of the Earth God and the Bloodshed Tavern. The ranking of the demigod list did not represent a person's strength. For example, Yimei. Her assassination and slaughter methods were extremely terrifying. Her direct combat strength was ranked 10th, but when it came to assassination, everyone in the world would tremble. Another example would be the Sea Deity Palace Master. Although he was ranked 8th on the demigod list, if they were to fight on the sea, he would be the undisputed #1. Even if the top 3 demigods on the demigod list joined forces, they would not be able to do anything to the Sea God Palace Master in the ocean. Because everyone comprehended the nature of heaven and earth, and the paths they took were different. Because he wielded a divine artifact. Every half-deity had their own specialties. You old man, you're not coming either? Old Madam Yi laughed. This is our Water Taoist faction's young genius, of course I have to come. Chao Qing proudly raised his head. Yes, the youngest. Old Madam Yi sighed and said, when I see young transcendents and feel their youthful auras, I sigh. We're all old. The group of good friends we knew when we were young either died early or died of old age. There aren't many left. Fortunately, there's still you, an old man who's older than me. You are not much different from me. You are the second oldest in the world. Old man Chao Qing said. You old man, are you purposely trying to anger me? Look at how proud you are now. When that young genius of your Water Taoist faction loses early, let's see if you can still be proud then. Old Madam Yi sneered. Lose? He can at least win 6 matches. Chao Qing glared. You said it. Old Madam Yi's eyes lit up. Let's make a bet. I bet that this brat won't win 6 matches. Let's bet then, who's afraid of who? An old man and old woman argued. However, the transcendents in the distance did not dare to come close because the older a demigod was, the more terrifying they were. These old fellows, no one knew their true strength. Even Mountain Lord He, faction head Si Kongyang, and the others respected old man Chao Qing and old Madam Yi. Of course, these 2 old men and old women were the oldest humans. They did not include the beast race or the transcendent world natives. For the beast race and the transcendent world natives, because of their fleshly bodies, their lifespan was different from humans. Beside faction head Si Kongyang and Mountain Lord He, another demigod walked over. This was a female demigod with an extremely stunning appearance. Dressed in white, she floated down. Although she was extremely beautiful, She had a pair of sword-like eyebrows. She carried a heroic aura. City Lord Bu, Sekongyang and Mountain Lord He were very polite. The person who came was the City Lord of the Cloud Fog City, one of the 6 big transcendent organizations. She was known as the most beautiful demigod, and even now, there were 2 demigods chasing after her. Sekongyang, you seem to be quite proud. City Lord Bu casually said after sitting down. However, a young genius does not necessarily mean that he is powerful. Since ancient times, there were many geniuses who became transcendents at a young age. But in the end, they all became mediocre. Who knows, this Dongbu Shuiying of your water Taoist faction might be such a brat. He might not even be able to win 3 matches this time. City Lord Bu is right. Sekongyang immediately agreed. Mountain Lord He also nodded from the side. What a joke, who didn't know City Lord Bu's temper? City Lord Bu was indeed the most beautiful demigod, and was also one of the top experts in the demigod list. However, in terms of aggressiveness, no human demigod could match up to her. So boring. City Lord Bu casually picked up a jug of wine and casually sat down to drink. She looked down and waited for the transcendent battle of life and death to begin. Rumble. The doors of the Hall of Life and Death slowly closed. Immediately, the entire Hall of Life and Death quietened down. The tens of thousands of mortals in the western viewing area were also very quiet. They all looked down and watched the battle below. Snow Eagle, it's about to begin. Qiu Qibai, Pengshan, Chengling Shu, Hai Ruzhan, and the others all looked at Dongbu Shuiying. This battle is the battle that you, Dongbu Shuiying, will display in front of the entire human world's transcendence. Qiu Qibai said. Moreover, the Infernal Palace will also evaluate your potential based on this battle. The Bloodshed Tavern will also evaluate your potential. If your potential is extremely high, even if someone wants to place a bounty on you, the Bloodshed Tavern will also offer a very high price. The Infernal Palace will also pay attention to you, and will give you resources. A young transcendent doesn't mean that he will be powerful in the future. But the transcendents who are outstanding in the transcendent battle of life and death are not mediocre. Qiu Qibai encouraged. Dongbu Shuiying grinned. I will try my best. Suddenly, dong! A loud sound resounded throughout the Hall of Life and Death. Dongbu Shuiying already knew the rules of the transcendent battle of life and death. He knew that the sound of the drum meant that he was about to enter the battlefield. Everyone, I'll be entering first. Dongbu Shuiying stood up, and with a flash flame surrounded his body, he flew into the battlefield. The battlefield was originally covered by a formation, completely isolating it from the outside world. But this formation was also controlled by the people from the Infernal Palace. Thus, Dongbu Shuiying easily passed through the formation and landed on the battlefield. In an instant, regardless of whether it was the transcendents in the east or the mortals in the west, they all saw the black-robed young man in the battlefield. At this moment, the gazes of countless people in the Hall of Life and Death landed on the black-robed young man in the battlefield. Today, more than 70% of the human transcendents were present. There were a total of 8 demigods. Strictly speaking, this was the most exciting transcendent battle of life and death in the past 2,000 years. The spectators all had their own thoughts. Some wanted to see a pleasant surprise, while others wanted to see a joke. If they were to lose after winning 2 battles, it would indeed be a joke. They were all waiting to see what kind of strength this young transcendent called Dongbu Shuiying could display. Dongbu Shuiying, who was wearing an ordinary black robe, walked barefoot towards the weapon rack at the side. In the transcendent battle of life and death, it was forbidden to use any transcendent weapons other than storage treasures. This included combat boots, protective inner armor, clothes, etc. They were all forbidden. The transcendent battle of life and death relied on one's own strength. That was why Dongbu Shuiying was only wearing an ordinary robe and barefoot. These weapons. Dongbu Shuiying looked at the large number of weapons. Sabers, spears, rods, swords, lances, etc. There were even some unique weapons and hidden weapons. These weapons were only made of good materials. There was nothing special about them. Of course, the most basic requirement was to transmit energy perfectly. He could only choose these weapons for the transcendent battle of life and death. Hua! Dongbu Shuiying waved his hand and the entire weapon rack was kept into his storage treasure. He would bring all of them with him first. He might need them during the battle. Dong! Another heavy drum beat sounded. Dongbu Shuang knew that this was the reminder for his opponent to enter the battlefield. He's here? The first battle? Dongbu Shuang used the heaven and earth energy to sense the entire battlefield. Chapter 112. Within a few miles of the battleground, there were undulating mountains and flowing streams. The scenery was extremely beautiful. Boom! A gigantic figure descended from the sky and landed on the battleground, crashing into a mountain. The impact force of over 100,000 Jin did not leave a single mark on the mountain. The mountain in the battleground was actually a special decoration created by the transcendent sorcerers. It wasn't a real mountain. The toughness of the mountain was something that even a sky realm transcendent would not be able to damage. Dongbu Shuang stared at the gigantic creature. Countless mortals on the western viewing platform exclaimed in shock. It was a lizard-type transcendent refiner organism. Its entire body was red in color, and its body was about 15 meters long. Its pair of golden eyes stared at Dongbu Shuang. Dongbu Shuang revealed a faint smile. The opponents of the transcendent battle of life and death were all decided long ago. According to the rules, the transcendent battle of life and death would be fought 3 times consecutively. After the 3 battles, one could rest for 2 hours to recover one's battle chi and stamina. After that, one could continue fighting 3 more battles and rest for another 2 hours, before proceeding to the next round. Until the end of the battle, many new transcendents were defeated in the first round. This was especially so for sorcerers. Most of them were weaker in one-on-one battles. It was already considered good if they could win 3 battles. According to the plan, the opponents for the first and second round would be transcendent refiner organisms. The third round would only be against transcendent natives. The further they went, the more unique and powerful their opponents would be. Roar! The huge red lizard immediately sprinted forward. Its heavy footsteps caused the ground to tremble. Dongbu Shuang flipped his hand and a black spear appeared in his hand. He casually shook the spear. The spear didn't have any runic patterns on it, but the strength of the spear was still transmitted perfectly. Who? In an instant, the scarlet lizard appeared beside Dongbu Shuang, as it used its huge claws to stomp down on Dongbu Shuang. This stomp caused the spectators to feel their hearts palpitating, not daring to breathe. However, Dongbu Shuang easily dodged the attack. Following which, his silhouette flickered as he evaded the attacks of the scarlet lizard. He had been dodging all this while not even blocking, let alone counterattacking. The first opponent is really weak. Even an ordinary extraordinary knight would be able to defeat him easily. Dongbu Shuang did not have much experience fighting against transcendent opponents. Hence, he tried his best to experience every single battle to gain some experience. Scram! Dongbu Shuang made his move. Who? The spear arced through the air in a huge arc, as streams of water appeared around the spear. The scarlet lizard hurriedly used its claws to block. The moment the spear came into contact with the claws, the strange spinning force caused the spear to change its direction easily. The spear passed through the claws and pierced through the abdomen of the scarlet lizard. Following which, Dongbu Shuang suddenly exerted his strength. Upward slash. Boom! The scarlet lizard was immediately sent flying. At the instant it was sent flying, it panicked and tried to stabilize its body. However, Dongbu Shuang followed up with a whip. The giant scarlet lizard, which had just been sent flying, was unable to block in time. The spear turned into a blurry phantom and struck its body, sending it flying far away at high speed. It crashed into a mountain rock dozens of meters away, creating a loud sound. It tumbled and fell to the side, still staggering. It revealed a helpless expression, knowing that it had failed. Dong! A deep drum sound echoed throughout the entire hall of life and death. An invisible force enveloped the scarlet lizard and sucked it out of the battlefield. The mortals watching the battle from the outside world were all excitedly discussing among themselves. Clearly, Shuang had easily sent his opponent flying the moment he did so. A black-robed young man sending a 10 meters long lizard flying. It was a shocking sight to behold. The first battle has ended. Dongbu Shuang was very calm. This transcendent refiner organism's strength is similar to mine. However, its techniques are too weak. His body was at the mid-phase of the sky realm. That giant lizard strength was also at the mid-phase of the sky realm. However, in terms of battle techniques, it was far from Xiang Pengyun's level. Currently, Dongbu Shuiying's battle techniques were much higher than before. He could completely oppress Xiang Pengyun. Naturally, he could easily oppress a transcendent refiner organism like this. After 10 breaths of time, another figure descended from above. After landing, it occupied the highest peak of the battlefield. This was a scorpion-like transcendent refiner organism. It had a short body and a long scorpion tail. Its entire body was black, and it had sharp claws. Even the joints of its limbs were filled with spikes. Its entire body seemed to be filled with weapons. From the looks of it, it was much harder to deal with. This is my opponent for the second round. Many transcendent mages and a few weaker transcendent knights were defeated in this round. Dongbu Shuiying walked on the ground barefooted. Step by step, he walked towards the black scorpion. Not all transcendents were able to reach the realm of myriad existences. Some were only able to step into the transcendent realm while being one with the world. These transcendents were much weaker. Thus, many of them were defeated in the second round. Hua hua hua, the stream flowed, as though a ribbon was coiling around the mountain. Dongbu Shuiying walked on the water barefooted. He didn't need to use heaven and earth energy or do qi, but he was still able to walk on the water without sinking. It was as though he was walking on flat ground. Every step he took was filled with the beauty of nature. There was a formless rhythm to it. Just like that, he walked towards the black scorpion. The black scorpion stared at its opponent, cautiously waiting for an opportunity. Jing Qiu was amongst the crowd of mortals. She was looking at the huge battleground. Dongbu Shuiying, who was dressed in black, walked on the water barefooted. Step by step, he walked towards the black scorpion. She only felt that he was so handsome. That kind of beauty of nature caused her heartbeat to quicken. Why do I feel that he's so powerful? Why do I feel that he's not ordinary when he walks? What do you know? That's because his steps are filled with the profound mystery of myriad existences. Clearly, he has comprehended the realm of myriad existences. Not only can he use it on his spear techniques, even his ordinary actions can trigger the profound mystery of heaven and earth. Just a casual raise of his hand or a kick would have a terrifying might. Immediately, a legend ranker explained. The other legend rankers beside him suddenly understood. The legend rankers could barely see through the profound mystery of heaven and earth. As for the weaker mortals, they were purely here to enjoy the show. This kind of battle between transcendents was simply too cool and shocking. Eastern Europe's snow eagle walked to the highest point of the small hill in the battleground. When the black scorpion got close enough to Dongbu Shuiying, it finally launched its attack. Xiu! As fast as lightning, the black scorpion's scorpion tail moved in a strange and unpredictable manner. In an instant, it arrived in front of Dongbu Shuiying. The black spear in Dongbu Shuiying's hand easily blocked the scorpion's attack. Since the start of the battle, Dongbu Shuiying had been using the profound mystery of the water of myriad existences. This was because it was more suitable for defense. Regardless of how weak the opponent was, it was better to be careful. The black scorpion attacked crazily. The scorpion's tail, hooves, and spikes covered the sky as it attacked crazily. Dongbu Shuiying had been defending against the scorpion's attacks. His spear was surrounded by a faint stream of water. All of the scorpion's attacks were unable to get within 2 meters of Dongbu Shuiying. His combat techniques are average, but his body structure is superior. Some transcendent knights who have only reached the state of one with the world would easily fall. As for transcendent sorcerers, they aren't good at close combat, and they can't use any special equipment. They can only use the simplest wand, which is why they are easily defeated. Dongbu Shuiying observed the battle. The spear that he was using to block the scorpion's attack suddenly spun. The spear turned into a furious stab, which was both strange and fast. Under the strange force, the trajectory of Dongbu Shuiying's spear was twisted in an arc. It was very difficult to defend against it, let alone at close range. The black scorpion didn't even have the time to block the attack, and it was stabbed at the joint between its hooves and body. With a bang, the black scorpion was sent rolling on the ground. Fast and strange enough. Some of the transcendents who were watching from the east were astonished. The usage of the water of metamorphosis on the spear was indeed strange and unfathomable. Transcendent refiner organisms might be able to defend against a brutal attack with their bodies, but against such a strange technique, even a true transcendent knight would be at a disadvantage. Even a true transcendent knight would be at a disadvantage against such a strange technique, let alone a transcendent refiner organism. Shui Ying easily pierced its vital parts, causing it to roll for more than 10 meters before coming to a stop. Following a dong sound of a drum, the huge scorpion flew up and was carried away by an invisible force from the battlefield. The third battle is about to begin. Dongbua Shui Ying knew the danger. The transcendent world's indigenous people will appear. Only by killing the transcendent world's indigenous people will I be able to win. And that transcendent world's indigenous people will also want to kill me. What was a life and death battle? From the third battle onwards, the true meaning of life and death would come. Both sides would fight with their lives on the line. Of course, at the crucial moment when a human was about to be killed, the demigods who were in charge of rescuing the human would step in. Usually, they would be able to save the human, and those who couldn't could only die in the battlefield. Chapter 113. Countless mortals in the Western spectator stands were filled with anticipation. They were here to spectate the battle. What they were looking forward to the most was the battle between human transcendence and native transcendence. This Dongbua Shui Ying's spear arts are very proficient, and his profound mystery of the water of myriad creations is impenetrable. He should be able to win the third match. That's hard to say. Native transcendents have different innate talents. Who knows, he might meet someone who can counter Dongbua Shui Ying. That's right. That depends on luck. The transcendents were also observing and discussing. Their eyes were very sharp. Being stared at by hundreds of thousands of mortals and half of the human transcendents, Dongbua Shui Ying stood on the peak of a small mountain and calmly sensed the movements around him. To him there was no need to care about others. The transcendent battle of life and death was a rare opportunity for him to accumulate experience. Who? A human figure descended from the sky and landed on the battlefield. When he landed on the ground, a formless, baleful aura spread out. Amen? Dongbua Shui Ying furrowed his brows as he stared at his opponent, who was 500 meters away. This native transcendent was in human form. He was about 3 meters tall and was rather skinny. He wore loose white clothes and carried 2 sabers on his back. However, his skin was green in color, and his eyes were fiery red. Even his hair was red in color. Native transcendent. Dongbua Shui Ying did not dare to be careless. What was a native transcendent? It was a life form that was naturally born in large and small transcendent worlds, just like the primordial life forms that were born in the earliest period of the material world. Primordial life forms were born from the heavens and earth, and each of them had unimaginable strength and methods. The strongest among them had strength comparable to God's. The material world was too perfect. But the laws of transcendent worlds were even simpler. Thus, the life forms born from the heavens and earth were much weaker. The strongest native life form born from large transcendent worlds was only a demigod, and the strongest native life form born from small transcendent worlds was only a saint. In other words, native transcendents were equivalent to weakened primordial life forms. They had many innate talents and methods, so they must not be underestimated. Human. The green-skinned transcendent native stared at Dongbua Shui Ying from afar. His fiery red eyes were flashing with lightning, and the corners of his mouth curled upwards in a mocking smile. Powerful existences among you have captured me, tortured me, and now you're even using me to train yourself. But sometimes the results are different from what you expect. You will die by my hands and I will be free. But I think you'll die. I, Dongbua Shui Ying, will be the first transcendent native to die in my hands. Standing on top of the mountain, Dongbua Shui Ying held a spear in his hand and said calmly, "Is that so?" The green-skinned transcendent native let out a cold smile as he drew out 2 sabers from his back. He wore loose white clothes and held a saber with both hands. He was also barefoot. The only difference was that his feet were big and green. So, in an instant he moved. Lightning appeared around his body, and his entire body was like a bolt of lightning. He moved in a zigzag pattern and instantly closed in. Both of them were originally 500 meters apart, but in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Dongbua Shui Ying. At the same time, His two sabers slashed towards Dongbu Ying. So fast. Dongbu Ying was shocked, and he immediately swung his spear in a circle, enveloping the area in front of him. Who? The green-skinned transcendent native twisted his body, and in an instant, he appeared beside Dongbu Ying. At the same time, he slashed his sabers towards Dongbu Ying again. Dongbu Ying turned his spear, and turned to the side, enveloping a large area as well. Water swirled around the spear. It was able to defend against all attacks. Shwa shwa shwa. In the eyes of the mortals, the green-skinned transcendent native who was 3 meters tall seemed to have transformed into tens of figures, surrounding Dongbu Ying and slashing at him madly. As for Dongbu Ying, he stood at his original position, and only relied on his spear to defend. In just a breath's time, the transcendent native had retreated 200 meters away. Countless mortals held their breaths. It was too fast and they could only see a few shadows flashing by. But these mortals didn't know that the transcendent native and Dongbu Ying's weapons had not even touched each other from the start to the end. So fast. Dongbu Ying heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was speechless. This transcendent native's cultivation realm is very ordinary, and his saber technique is also very rough. My spear technique is much more profound than his, but his speed is extremely fast. Looking at the lightning around his body when he moves, his innate talent should be lightning, and his forte should be speed. With such speed, he has completely grasped the initiative, and I can't even touch him. In terms of instantaneous explosive speed and changing direction speed, his speed was 2 times that of Dongbu Ying. 2 times difference in speed. It was even more exaggerated than 2 times difference in strength. The other party would have absolute control over the situation. What did that mean? It meant that he was able to surround and attack Dongbu Ying single-handedly with a very rough saber technique. Your defense is pretty strong. The green-skinned transcendent native laughed coldly. From the start to the end, my weapon did not even touch your weapon, and yet you are able to defend so perfectly. What if I touch it? Dongbu Ying's expression changed slightly. The moment they collided, his spear would definitely be affected. Haha, despair. Die in despair. The green-skinned transcendent native's body flickered with lightning. His speed was terrifyingly fast, and once again, he appeared in front of Dongbu Ying. His 2 sabers slashed towards Dongbu Ying. Dang! Their weapons clashed for the first time. Dongbu Ying tried his best to block with his spear, and a whirlpool of water appeared around him. But the snow-white saber slashed over again and again. It was too fast. It was obvious that Dongbu Ying was having a hard time defending against his spear. Under the continuous clashing of weapons, Dongbu Ying's spear was getting more and more strenuous. The transcendent native was also getting more and more expectant. This is the moment. At the instant when their weapons clashed, the spear in Dongbu Ying's hand moved like a python. The transcendent native felt his saber being stuck to the spear's body. A strange rotating force guided his saber, and the spear was like a dragon coming out of its cave, piercing towards Dongbu Ying in an instant. In terms of physical speed, Dongbu Ying was far inferior to him, but the speed of his weapon was much faster. No! The transcendent native hurriedly dodged with all his might. Boo! The spear instantly pierced into his shoulder, creating a bloody hole. Following which, the transcendent native retreated explosively, and Dongbu Ying's spear didn't have time to attack a second time. You actually managed to escape. Dongbu Ying shook his head. You did it on purpose. You are purposely acting weak. The transcendent native roared. With such a strange and unpredictable spear art, how was it possible for him to be suppressed by him? He was purposely acting weak, allowing Dongbu Ying to attack freely, and then waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack like a venomous snake. Your speed is really fast. You are even able to avoid being hit in the vitals. Dongbu Ying stared at the transcendent native's shoulder. The bloody hole on his shoulder was slowly recovering, and there was even dark green blood flowing out. Is that all you have? Dongbu Ying stared at him. The green-skinned transcendent native's face turned cold. He had also realized that his opponent's spear art was too strange and unpredictable. It would be too difficult for him to win. Relying on your innate talent, you possess frightening speed. It's a pity that your blade art is too crude. It can't even be compared to ordinary legend rankers. Dongbo Shuang shook his head. This transcendent native's realm was too low. His blade art was too crude, and he didn't even have the one with the world, let alone the realm of myriad existences. It was truly a waste of his frightening speed. However, from this, one could see the threat of these transcendent natives. As long as their realms were able to catch up, they would become extremely terrifying. Since you don't have any powerful techniques, this battle can end here, Dongbo Shuang said. Rumble, the surrounding 700 to 800 meters was filled with surging waves. Actually, the entire battlefield's diameter was only 3 to 4 kilometers. At this moment, this enormous whirlpool of water had completely enveloped the entire battlefield. Wow! This, countless mortals stared with their eyes wide open. The enormous battlefield had instantly transformed into an enormous whirlpool of water. In the center of the whirlpool was the black-robed young man. That black-robed young man was like a deity of the water. The whirlpool was extremely ferocious. Within it, there were even strange undercurrents. The whirlpool revolved unceasingly. The green-skinned transcendent native's expression changed greatly as he stood within the whirlpool. The undercurrents within the whirlpool were constantly changing, causing yin and yang to fluctuate. Can you still escape? Dongbo Shuang instantly turned into a phantom as he rushed over. Escape, escape! The green-skinned transcendent native fled with all his might. However, the surging whirlpool of water was too unbearable. If it was just the pressure, he wouldn't have cared. However, the undercurrents were too unbearable. Actually, just the change in the direction of the pressure was enough to cause this transcendent native, who didn't possess the perfect as one, to suffer a huge loss. Not to mention the fact that Dongbo Shuang had fused the profound mysteries of water and fire of myriad existences together. Within the gentleness there was a ferocity, and within the ferocity there was a gentleness. The undercurrents within the whirlpool were endless. Even a human transcendent with a higher cultivation would be at a disadvantage, let alone a transcendent native with a lower cultivation. He staggered as he ran, and he could only unleash 30 to 40% of his original speed. Most importantly, he couldn't even grasp the accuracy of his movements. Every step he took might be too far, too close, or too far off. No! The green-skinned transcendent native turned his head to look behind him. His fiery red eyes were wide open as he brandished his saber in an attempt to block. Boo! The spear was like a dragon as it instantly pierced into the space between his eyebrows. It only pierced a little before it was pulled out. There was a finger-sized hole in the space between his eyebrows. His brain had already been completely destroyed and turned into mush. The vitality of a transcendent native was extremely strong. Usually only by beheading, piercing through the heart, or piercing through the brain would they die. As for those who had attained the undying body, they were even more terrifying. Countless mortals looked at the surging waves in the huge battlefield below. The black-robed young man who was treading on the waves stood there. Beside him was the corpse of a 3-meter-tall green-skinned native transcendent native. First there was complete silence. Following that there was an excited cheer. Jingqiu was also cheering excitedly as she watched. The first round has ended. Rest for 2 hours before the second round begins. A sonorous voice resounded throughout the entire Hall of Life and Death. The endless waves dissipated. On the other hand, Dongbo Shuang walked towards an open door at the corner of the battlefield. Evidently, he was going to rest for 2 hours before preparing for the second round. Chapter 114. Hong Long Long. The doors of the Hall of Life and Death slowly opened. Because there were 2 hours to rest, the doors would naturally open during the break, allowing people to take the chance to walk around and return to the Hall of Life and Death when the time was right. Countless mortals watched with their blood boiling, feeling incomparably excited. On the other hand, the spectators in the east were either in groups of 2s or 3s, or in groups of 8 or 10. The transcendents were chatting with each other and were much calmer. To them this was just a show to watch, and at the same time, a reunion with old friends that they hadn't seen for many years. Win 3 rounds? So what if that was the big deal? It was too ordinary. To a mage, passing 3 rounds might be praiseworthy, because mages were at a disadvantage in a one-on-one battle without being able to use any transcendent equipment. But transcendent knights were experts in close combat. As long as they had reached the realm of myriad existences and had rich combat experience, it would be a joke if they could not pass the first 3 rounds. Passing was considered normal performance. Winning 4 or 5 rounds was considered impressive. Winning 6 rounds was considered impressive. Vice Het Chao Qing and Qiu Qi Bai were also impressive back then. They were experts in combat and had won 6 rounds. Without awakening their primordial bloodline and having special talents, they could only rely on their own cultivation level and combat experience to win 6 rounds. It was definitely worthy of admiration. As for those who won 7, 8, or 9 rounds, they all had the special talents of the primordial bloodline. For example, Dan Qingyan in the recent 10,000 years. Her primordial bloodline was a special blood talent. When she ignited her blood, her speed and strength would increase exponentially. Even her body was close to being undying. Back then, she relied on her cultivation level and combat experience to win 6 rounds. After that, she activated her talent, causing her strength to increase exponentially. Her body was also close to being undying, winning 7, 8, and 9 rounds consecutively. Another example was the Purgatory Knight Jieli, who had the most victories in the history of the Xia people. His primordial bloodline talent was even more mystical. As a mortal, he could already control flames, and the temperature of the flames was extremely high. After becoming a transcendent, he combined the profound mysteries of myriad existences and Dou Qi. His primordial bloodline talent turned into a terrifying flame. It was called the Purgatory Flame by the Transcendents. Jieli was also called the Purgatory Knight. The Purgatory Flame's temperature alone could burn a Sky Peak expert to death. Under the burning of the Purgatory Flame, even if one's body was strong enough to withstand the heat, how painful would it be? Moreover, the pressure from the Purgatory Flame was also extremely strong. The opponent might not even be able to display half of their strength. His own cultivation level was also very high. With the help of his innate talent, he finally achieved the unimaginable achievement of 11 matches. To this day, there was not a second person in the entire Xia people who could achieve this. So, to be able to achieve such a high score in the transcendent battle of life and death, one had to have a high cultivation realm and battle experience, but the other was the primordial bloodline talent. Dongbo Shui Ying's innate talent was only the ability to double one's strength. Compared to all the other innate talents, it was one of the most unremarkable. Therefore, now that Dongbo Shui Ying had only won 3 matches, it was normal for the Transcendents to be calm and chatting casually with each other. In one of the side gardens of the Hall of Life and Death, Dongbo Shui Ying was holding a flat wine flask. The flask was filled with the spiritual liquid of the Stone of Oceanic Boundary. He sat in the garden and looked at the flowers and plants. Because it was winter, there were only a few white flowers and some plants with strong vitality left in the garden. Gugu. He casually drank a mouthful of the spiritual liquid of the Stone of Oceanic Boundary. This spiritual liquid had the effect of nourishing one's battle chi and soul. After drinking it, he felt very comfortable. The first 3 matches weren't that difficult. It's just that the Transcendent Native's innate talent is a little special. Dongbo Shui Ying praised. His speed is actually twice as fast as mine. Countless Transcendents would choose between having their strength doubled or their speed doubled. Most likely 99% of them would choose to double their speed. My primordial bloodline talent is indeed a very ordinary type of innate talent. Dongbo Shui Ying laughed at himself. Regardless of whether it was the Dragon Mountain Manor head Hong or Qiu Qi Bai and the rest, when they knew that Dongbo Shui Ying's primordial bloodline talent was merely strength, they didn't care. However, when I was weak, my primordial bloodline had helped me a lot. If not for my primordial bloodline, I would have died in the hands of Xiang Peng Yun long ago. Dongbo Shui Ying didn't care about the ordinary nature of his primordial bloodline. After all, as a transcendent expert, the higher one's cultivation level was, the more important and fundamental, everything else was secondary. Drinking the spiritual liquid of the Stone of Oceanic Boundary, Dongbo Shui Ying became more clear-headed. He recalled the previous 3 matches and thought about how he performed during the battles, absorbing the experience. The second round will be the most difficult. Based on the rules set by the Infernal Palace, the opponent for the 4th round will be a Battle Chi clone. The opponent for the 5th round will still be a lower Transcendent Native. And the opponent for the 6th round will be a middle Transcendent Native. Dongbo Shui Ying thought to himself, Battle Chi Clone. After becoming a saint expert, one would be able to do it. The transcendent battle chi of a saint expert would be able to condense into a human form and transform freely. Furthermore, the soul of a saint expert would be even stronger, allowing them to separate a portion of their soul into the battle chi clone. This way, the battle chi clone would be able to move independently and display a relatively strong strength. Normally, when going on an adventure, saint experts would like to use their battle chi clone to explore unknown areas. Even if they met with a huge danger and the battle chi clone died, a portion of their soul would be destroyed. At most, a saint expert would suffer a huge loss of vitality, but they would be able to recover after some rest. If they recklessly charged forward, it would be very easy for them to lose their lives. The strength of the battle chi clone depended on the amount of transcendent battle chi in the clone and how many souls were attached to it. Lower transcendent native, middle transcendent native, upper transcendent native. This was how humans categorized the natives of the transcendent world. These natives of the transcendent world were equivalent to weakened primordial life forms. They all had their own strange innate abilities. According to the uniqueness and threat of their innate abilities, humans categorized them as lower, middle, and upper. Actually, this categorization was learned from the abyss demons. The abyss demons were categorized as lower, middle, and upper. In terms of threat, the abyss demons were much more terrifying than the transcendent natives. After all, they were the terrifying life forms of the dark abyss. Of course, just like the transcendent native that Dongbu Shuang fought against in the third round, his speed was twice that of an expert of the same level, yet he was only categorized as a lower transcendent native. A middle transcendent native was extremely terrifying. An upper transcendent native was extremely rare. It was rare for the Xia people to capture an upper transcendent native. After they were captured, they would be kept in captivity by demigod transcendent mages for research. It was impossible for them to be used in the transcendent battle of life and death. After all, there were many transcendent mages who researched on bloodlines and fleshly bodies. For example, Si Liang Hong, a mortal from Azure River County, specialized in researching on bloodlines and fleshly bodies. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. The Hall of Life and Death once again rumbled as it closed. Countless mortals had already returned to the Hall of Life and Death. Every one of them was filled with excitement and anticipation. This was because the following battles would be even more exciting, and the opponents would be even more unique. Within the battlefield, Dongbu Shuang stood alone, silently waiting for his opponent. Dong! A thunderous sound resounded throughout the entire Hall of Life and Death. Everyone quietened down. Hua! A ray of light descended and landed on a mountain rock. It was a handsome and unruly white-robed man with a divine sword on his back. His entire body was faintly glowing. It was obvious that he did not have a body of flesh and blood, but a body formed from Do Qi. Dongbu Shuang looked at the white-robed man in front of him in shock. Elder Gong Liang. Although the white-robed man in front of him was a body formed from Do Qi, he could tell with a single glance that he was Elder Gong Liang Yuan, the one who had led him into the infernal world. The white-robed handsome man rubbed his nose and laughed helplessly. There's no choice. Your opponent in the 4th round is me. He had already released the first chapter, and the second chapter would be released soon. Chapter 115. The handsome white-robed Gong Liang Yuan said helplessly, I have just become a martial saint not long ago and my abilities are still weak. My Do Qi doppelganger can test your strength. Brother Dongbua, although I really want to help you, there are so many transcendents staring at you. There are even demigods with incredible abilities. I don't dare to go easy on you. Elder Gong Liang, don't stand on ceremony. Dongbua Shuang said. I will try my best to stop you and defeat you. Gong Liang Yuan said, if you can't even defeat this Qi clone, you will be in danger of dying in the 5th and 6th matches. Understood. Dongbua Shuang nodded. Come. Gong Liang Yuan stood there. Shuang was cautiously staring at the distant elder Gong Liang Yuan whose skin was covered in flowing light. He thought to himself, Elder Gong Liang Yuan always carries a deity sword on his back. If it isn't a quirk, then it should be related to the secret technique he cultivates. Back when he was in the Water Taoist faction's secret arts pavilion, although he had chosen the magic dragon art in the end, He had already browsed through a large number of high-grade and top-grade secret doqi techniques. Although he didn't want to learn them for the time being, he could still accumulate some experience and broaden his horizons by reading more. Therefore, he knew of many special secret techniques that required one to carry a weapon at all times. In addition, he had chatted with many transcendents over the past half a year, and learned some common knowledge. The more one carried a weapon, the more careful they had to be. Boom! Dongbua Shuiying willed. Instantly, the power of the heaven and earth water in the battlefield surged, forming endless waves. The surging waves engulfed an area of 3 to 4 li in the battlefield, forming a huge whirlpool. Gong Liang Yuan, who was also in the middle of the whirlpool, frowned. He then smiled and said, "Brother Dongbua, you have just become a transcendent, but the profound mystery of the water of creation is quite interesting." Although he said that, there was a formless wind energy surrounding him, easily blocking all the water currents. In terms of cultivation level, he was higher than Dongbua Shuiying. "Brother Dongbua, make your move. If you just stand there like an idiot, you won't be able to win." Gong Liang Yuan stood there, waiting for Dongbua Shuiying to make his move. Alright. Dongbua Shuiying wanted to stay still and wait for the other party to move, so that he could find some clues. But according to the rules, he could only win if he defeated his opponent. Whoosh! Dongbua Shuiying walked on the water. When he moved, he was like a bolt of lightning. In just a flash, he had already closed in on Gong Liang Yuan. Strangely, Gong Liang Yuan, who was originally standing there, suddenly grabbed the hilt of the divine sword on his back with his right hand. It was as if his right hand had been holding the hilt for a very long time. But as she approached him, his hands were still relaxed, but strangely, his right hand was on the hilt of his sword, and time seemed to slow down. Clang! It was the sound of a divine sword being unsheathed. What followed was a dazzling cold sword light with a strong wind current. The sword light was extremely fast and had already arrived in front of him. Dang! Dongbua Shuiying's face fell. He immediately used the black spear in his hand to block the incoming attack. At the same time, he quickly retreated, severing wind 15 swords. The secret technique that Elder Gong Liang Yuan was practicing was a top-grade secret technique, severing wind 15 swords. This secret technique was suitable for transcendents who were proficient in the profound mystery of all things wind. Furthermore, it was suitable for using swords. Dongbua Shuiying had seen this secret technique before in the secret technique pavilion. Normally, some secret techniques were proficient in defense, while others were proficient in offense. Even those that were proficient in defense would usually have some offensive capabilities. But the severing wind 15 swords was an extreme secret technique that was purely used for offense. It did not have any effect in terms of defense, but its offensive capabilities were extremely terrifying. Practicing this secret technique required one to constantly nurture the divine sword. Furthermore, when the sword was unsheathed, each strike would be faster than the previous one using the power of the wind. Just like the stacking of waves, the power of the sword would continuously increase, and the requirement for mastery of the profound mystery of all things wind would become higher and higher. Only when one reached full mastery would he be able to perform all 15 swords. Of course, Elder Gong Liang Yuan had just entered the Saint Realm, so it was impossible for him to reach the level of 15 swords. But even if he could perform 5 or 6 swords, it would still be very terrifying. Facing such a secret technique, he had to run. He could not allow the opponent to unleash all his swords in one go. As long as he could stop the opponent's swords temporarily, the opponent would have to start from the very first sword in order to execute this secret technique. The stacking of swords was something that had to be executed continuously without stopping. "You won't be able to escape, Brother Dongbua." Gong Liang Yuan's voice rang out, and at the same time, a strong gust of wind appeared around Dongbua Shuiying, obstructing Dongbua Shuiying's movements. While Dongbua Shuiying was retreating, Gong Liang Yuan had already unleashed 2 more swords in the air. By the 4th sword, it was already right in front of Dongbua Shuiying's eyes. There was no way to dodge. Since there was no way to dodge, then he would have to face it head-on. Facing the severing wind 15 swords, using offense against offense was also a method. He would try his best to destroy the opponent's stacking of swords. Dang! The spear in Dongbua Shuiying's hand turned into a blazing flame, ferociously stabbing towards his opponent. The 2 swords clashed together, and at the instant of impact, The sword retracted nimbly using the rebound force. Following that, it unleashed an even more terrifying fifth sword. The gust of wind brought about by this sword was already very small, but the sword light itself was much more condensed and faster. The earlier clash between the two weapons was very weak. This caused Dongwu Shuiying to feel very uncomfortable. He had clearly unleashed a ferocious attack, but his opponent had retracted it with just a single touch. Furthermore, it was even faster than before. This caused him to feel the pressure of being suppressed in terms of techniques. This Gongliang Yuan might not be comparable to Dongwu Shuiying when he was a new transcendent, but he had been cultivating for many years. Furthermore, the fact that he was able to step into the Saint Realm meant that he was already very powerful. Under normal circumstances, only 1 out of 10 Sky Realm transcendents would be able to step into the Saint Realm. Fortunately, Dongwu Shuiying already knew the logic behind the fire of creation. The profound mystery of fire of creation contained a soft force. With a twist of his spear, the profound mystery of fire of creation easily changed into the profound mystery of water of creation. He immediately retracted his spear and reduced the radius of his defense. Boo! The spear managed to block the fifth sword by a hair's breadth. The divine sword was retracted upon contact, followed by the even faster sixth sword. This sword was so fast that Dongwu Shuiying's eyes turned blurry. He could only grit his teeth and try his best to block it. He believed in the defensive capabilities of his spear art with the profound mystery of water of creation. Hua! The spear turned into a circle, and streams of water swirled around it. Boom! This sword was no longer as light as it was in the past. Instead, the accumulated power of each sword was unleashed. To be honest, the speed of the Douqi doppelganger was far inferior to that lightning transcendent native. However, by the time the sixth sword was unleashed, the speed of the sword art was already so fast that Dongwu Shuiying could only rely on his instincts to block it. Furthermore, the might of the attack was even more terrifying. Dongwu Shuiying only felt an intense impact on his spear. He hurriedly spun his spear, trying his best to deflect the impact. However, the impact still caused the spear shaft to fly backwards, smashing onto Dongwu Shuiying's body. Boo! Dongwu Shuiying was sent flying backwards, and at the same time he spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he was sent flying backwards, Dongwu Shuiying was still extremely excited. He blocked it. If he didn't block it, that sword would have landed on his body, and he would have lost an arm or leg. He might not lose his life in the 4th round, but if he was heavily injured, it would mean that he would lose. Following Dongwu Shuiying, he landed on the water surface and looked at Gongliang Yuan. He actually didn't chase after him. While he was sent flying backwards, Dongwu Shuiying was still facing his opponent, preparing to defend at any moment. Logically speaking, when he was sent flying, it was definitely a good opportunity for him to attack. And Dongwu Shuiying discovered that the white-robed Gongliang Yuan was standing there. His skin had turned transparent, and the flowing light became more and more obvious. Old brother Dongwu, congratulations. You won. It's a pity that I can only use the most ordinary sword provided by the Infernal Palace. Gongliang Yuan looked at the sword in his hand. Without a long period of mental nourishment, the power I can unleash is much weaker. I can only unleash 6 swords at most. With his true strength he could unleash 8 swords. The Severing Wind 15 swords could be considered a small success. Elder Gongliang, I was already having a hard time just now. Why didn't you continue to attack? Dongwu Shuiying asked. The amount of transcendent Douqi in this avatar of mine is also not much. It is only enough for me to unleash the Severing Wind 6 swords once. Gongliang Yuan laughed. The Severing Wind 15 swords consumed a lot of Douqi. Currently, the amount of Douqi in his avatar was too little. He could only unleash 1 or 2 swords of Severing Wind 6 swords. It was not a threat to Dongwu Shuiying at all. I really didn't expect that you would be able to block my Severing Wind 6 swords when you are only at the 1st level of Myriad Realm. Gongliang Yuan laughed. Chapter 116. With that, Gongliang Yuan's almost transparent body soared into the sky and flew away. Dong! The sound of a drum resounded throughout the Hall of Life and Death. Countless mortals understood that the 4th match was considered a victory. Actually, many mortals could not understand this match. Because the Douqi doppelganger had only used a few extremely fast swords, mortals could not even see it clearly. Furthermore, Dongbu Shuiying was sent flying while vomiting blood. How did he win? The mortals did not think too much about it. They were here to watch an exciting battle between transcendents. If they could not understand, they could only blame themselves for not being knowledgeable enough. Comprehending myriad existences at the first level was able to block the severing wind 15 swords. Interesting. However, it is impossible for him to win the sixth match just by relying on his unpredictability and defense. The transcendents who were spectating from the east became slightly interested, because they felt that Shuiying's path was about to come to a halt. Comprehending the nature of heaven and earth, reaching the realm of myriad existences. Nature of heaven and earth, the transformation of myriad existences, endless profound mysteries. After stepping into the realm of myriad existences, along with the deepening of one's comprehension, one's ability to control the energy of heaven and earth would undergo a qualitative transformation. According to this qualitative transformation, the realm of myriad existences was divided into 3 levels. This also represented the level of one's comprehension of heaven and earth. Extremely few legend rankers, like the top 3 in the Dragon Mountain book, were monsters who had comprehended the second level of myriad existences. Normally, once one stepped into the second level of myriad existences, they would be able to quickly break through to become transcendents. There were also those who broke through to become transcendents. Their soul would undergo a qualitative transformation, allowing them to comprehend the nature of heaven and earth, reaching the second level of myriad existences. In short, to rely on one's own comprehension to win the sixth match, one would normally have to reach the second level of myriad existences. Breaking through to the next realm would become increasingly difficult. The third level of myriad existences was rare even amongst the sky realm transcendents. Normally, once one reached this level, one would have hope of breaking through to the saint realm. Above that would be the condensation of true meaning. Only those who could condense true meaning could be considered as true experts amongst the saint realm. The pressure is huge. Shuiying could feel the pressure from the battle. My comprehension of the realms is still too low. During the 6 years I spent in the underground Great Hall, my understanding of the profound mysteries of water and fire in the myriad existences had increased by a large amount. In the past 6 months in the Xia capital, I have been comprehending spear techniques, and my comprehension has also increased. But there was still no qualitative change. His profound mysteries of the realm of myriad creations was much more profound than when he killed Xiang Pang Yun. But only a qualitative change could represent reaching the second level. Fortunately, the water of myriad creations is good at defense. Otherwise, the fourth round would have been dangerous. Dongbu Shuiying had a look of anticipation in his eyes. Very good. The greater the pressure, the better it will be for me to hone my spear techniques. After becoming a transcendent for half a year, he had gained a lot of insights into spear techniques. Many of them needed to be tested in actual combat. Who? Dongbu Shuiying raised his head and saw a figure descending from the sky, landing on the mountain rocks with a dull thud. This was a humanoid giant that was nearly 5 meters tall. His skin was dark red and he had fangs. He held a huge shield in one hand and a terrifying giant axe in the other. His dark yellow eyes were filled with killing intent and hatred. These transcendent natives that were thrown in as opponents were filled with hatred towards humans and refused to bow their heads. Humans captured them and forced them to do hard work. Sometimes, they would even be chosen as opponents in the transcendent battle of life and death. If they lost, they would die. But if they won, they would regain their freedom. Freedom was what these natives desired the most. Since the Infernal Palace had made a promise, they would not go back on it. If they could take the opportunity to kill a new transcendent and regain their freedom, how great would that be? Even if they killed a new transcendent, the Infernal Palace would not take revenge. Because this was the rule of the transcendent battle of life and death. Seems like this transcendent native is rather good at fighting. Dongbu Shuiying could sense that this transcendent native in front of him should be much stronger than the one he met in the third round. Boom! With a thought from Shuiying, surging waves of water appeared, forming a huge maelstrom of water that filled the entire battleground. The undercurrents within the waves were unceasing. The giant native with a shield and a giant axe frowned. His lips curled into a disdainful smile as he charged towards Qin Wentian. Although the undercurrents were turbulent, the giant native was still able to control his strength with relative precision. He charged towards Qin Wentian, ignoring the turbulent whirlpool. He has reached the realm of power as one. Dongbo Shuiying immediately deduced. The influence of the waves on him is rather small. Die human. The giant native turned his body sideways. With his left hand holding onto the giant shield, he charged towards Qin Wentian with the full force of his body. The giant native with a height of nearly 5 meters had a similarly huge shield. It was as though a giant wall was charging towards Dongbo Shuiying. If it was just a clash of weapons, he could still focus on techniques. But when it was just a shield, it would be much more troublesome to deal with. Dongbo Shuiying did not have any good ideas. Let's use this to see if he's strong or weak. Dongbo Shuiying immediately retreated. At the same time, his spear pierced out like a venomous snake, instantly colliding with the giant shield. Boom! A suppressive force was transmitted from the spear. Fortunately, the spear was merely a feint. The spear trembled as it deflected the force of the impact. Even so, it was still sent flying backwards. What a ferocious force! Dongbo Shuiying was shocked. You won't be able to escape. As Dongbo Shuiying was sent flying, the giant native chased after him. He swung his giant axe horizontally, as though it was about to split the heavens and earth apart. Dongbo Shuiying's spear was like a stream of water. It was incomparably gentle. The moment it came into contact with the axe, a bizarre rotational force caused the axe to change its direction. Suppress! The giant native's shield swept over once more. A giant shield and a giant axe swept out consecutively. Dongbo Shuiying was actually forced to defend. The main reason was because this giant native had rich combat experience. His techniques could be considered as a shield grandmaster and battle axe grandmaster. The combination of their techniques was extremely perfect. This native's strength is extremely strong. Even when using heavy weapons like shields and axes, he is still able to move so quickly and ferociously. Shuiying was doing his best to defend while pondering. He's using an upright and straightforward method to suppress me. Even though my profound mystery of the water of myriad existences is soft and strange, it is useless in front of him. There were many different styles of combat. A strange and gentle spear art was useless in the face of a direct suppression. Clearly, the Infernal Palace did not allow for any flukes when choosing an opponent for a new Transcendent. From the Transcendent native who was proficient in speed in the third match to the Shield Grandmaster and Battle Axe Grandmaster, who was able to suppress the Transcendent native head-on in the fifth match. It was a test of every aspect of a new Transcendent. As long as one failed in one aspect, they would be defeated. That terrifying axe whizzed over. If they were to be struck by it, they would instantly lose their lives. If I continue to hold on with such difficulty, I will only be defeated in the end. I have to counterattack. At the moment when Dongbo Shuiying was sent flying, he suddenly charged forward and raised his spear high. Bringing along boundless might, he slashed downwards. When he slashed downwards, flames appeared on the spear as though a meteorite was descending. The fire of myriad creations was ferocious and violent, directly suppressing. In terms of frontal attacks, it was much stronger than the profound mystery of the water of myriad creations spear art. It could not be considered as double, but it was not far from it. Furthermore, as one's cultivation realm increased, the difference between the different profound mysteries of the spear art would become greater. The fire of myriad creation spear art would become more and more ferocious, while the water of myriad creation spear art would become more and more unpredictable. Good. The huge native was agitated. He immediately brandished the axe in his hand and slashed forward. He wanted to crush the spear of the human in front of him and hack this human to death. Pung! A loud sound rang out. Dongbo Shuiying was sent flying backwards. The huge native also felt the huge impact and his body trembled uncontrollably. He was unable to give chase immediately. Boo! Dongbo Shuiying's mouth was filled with the taste of blood, but his eyes were filled with excitement. From the start of the transcendent battle of life and death until now, this was the only battle that gave him the same feeling as when he fought against Xiang Pangyun. That kind of pressure and nervousness when he was on the brink of death. Although the last strike of the severing wind 15 swords also made him feel the threat of death, It was only for a split second. The transcendent battle of life and death is getting more and more interesting. Dongbu Shuiying was extremely excited. Only such battles could truly temper himself. The feeling of walking on the brink of death caused his entire body to tremble with excitement. The threat of death stimulated his instincts, allowing him to enter the most perfect state. Chapter 117. The waves surged. The huge native was like an unshakable reef. Furthermore, he was nearly 5 meters tall. How huge was his physique? Dongbu Shuiying's height wasn't even as tall as the huge native's thigh. The huge native casually swung his shield, but it was as though a wall was pressing down on him. A casual swing of his axe, it was extremely difficult to dodge. If the huge native was an agile type, Dongbu Shuiying might have an advantage due to his small stature. However, this transcendent native was suppressing Dongbu Shuiying head-on. He was displaying the advantage of his physique and strength. Dongbu Shuiying is in trouble this time. I'm afraid he will lose in the 5th match. Humph. He relied on the peculiarity of the water of myriad existences and his defensive ability. However, it is completely useless against this straightforward suppression. He has no hope at all in this battle. I heard that he had awakened his primordial bloodline. Once his primordial bloodline is activated, he might be able to turn the tables. You guys shouldn't look down on him. Perhaps this Dongbu Shuiying had a breakthrough in the midst of battle. That year Qiu Qibai had a breakthrough in the midst of a life and death battle, reaching the 2nd level of the realms of myriad existences. After that, he won the 6th match. Some of the transcendents in the Eastern spectator stand straightened their backs. Some of them were also watching attentively. Snow Eagle. Old brother Snow Eagle. Qiu Qibai and the other transcendents from the Tranquil Sun province were also getting nervous. They could tell that without using his power of bloodline, it would be extremely difficult for Dongbu Shuiying to win this match. Snow Eagle is still too young. His realm is still lacking, Peng Shan said. However, Dongbu Shuiying wasn't anxious at all. Instead, he was fighting to his heart's content. His spear flew about. Sometimes it was gentle and strange. Sometimes it was ferocious and violent. Out of every 10 spear strikes, 6 or 7 of them were extremely ferocious. Most of them were even clashing head-on. Boom boom, it's a fair and square suppression, and there seems to be no flaws. However, he is too ferocious. The most perfect battle technique should have both yin and yang, both hard and soft. Back then, Dongbu Shuiying had first comprehended the fire of all creations. Later on, he felt that something was amiss, so he combined toughness and gentleness to comprehend the water of all creations. In his comprehension of the nature of the world, everything had its yin and yang sides. Crushing the opponent with pure brute force was very effective, but if he couldn't win in a short period of time, the opponent would have a chance to counterattack. He's strong and fierce. I, on the other hand, have both strength and gentleness. I definitely have a chance of defeating him. He seems to be flawless. So I'll create an opening in battle. Dongbu Shuiying was different from other transcendents. There were 2 types of transcendent knights who cultivated. The first type was those who fought on the brink of life and death from the very beginning. They would temper themselves and gain insights from the brink of death, allowing their realms to constantly rise. One such example was Qiu Qibai. Qiu Qibai was extremely adept at battle. The more he fought, the stronger he became. He even comprehended the true meaning of void cleavage. The other type was more inclined towards self-cultivation. Even if they rarely fought on the brink of life and death, as long as they had a solid foundation, they would be able to gradually improve their realms. Dongbu Shuiying belonged to the latter type. Before he became a transcendent, he had very few intense battles. Only the half a month in the mountain range of desolation, the battle with the god's emissary, and the battle with Xiang Pengyun could be considered as intense. Afterwards, at the bottom of the Black Wind Abyss, in the underground palace for 6 years, he had also immersed himself in cultivation. At most, he would spar with 2 transcendent refiner organisms. He didn't have any life and death battles to temper himself. Perhaps, he had also inherited some of his mother's strengths. Dongbu Shuiying loved to ponder, research, and summarize. It was the same during battles. When he was fighting with this huge native, Dongbu Shuang didn't panic at all. After a short exchange, he immediately understood his opponent's strengths and weaknesses. Then, based on his own strengths, he immediately came up with a plan. Boom boom boom. The clash between the two was incomparably ferocious. Under the eruption of the profound fire of creation, the huge native's arms were numb from the impact, and his body staggered. Under such collisions, Dongbu Shuang tried to find a flaw in the huge native's defense, hoping to kill him. However, it was clear that the huge native was also a shield master. He wouldn't give Dongbu Shuang the chance to do so. However, as long as one's strategy was right, as long as one was patient, the opportunity would eventually come. Boom! As Dongbu Shuang's spear swept across, it collided with the shield. Under the intense collision, the spearhead in Dongbu Shuang's hands was knocked backwards. However, Dongbu Shuang had a plan in mind. As his spear streaked across the sky, it spun 180 degrees, causing the spearhead to be at the back and the spearhead to be at the front. Xiao! The spear in his hand pierced out. The spearhead pierced out with the spearhead. The spearhead also spun in a shocking arc, bringing with it an intense and bizarre force. Water flowed around it. The huge native was too careless. After all, it was rare to see the spearhead piercing out. Although the spearhead was not sharp, this piercing was similar to the piercing of a rod, and the might behind it was equally shocking. Unable to block in time with his shield, he could only swing his huge axe to block. Boo! The spearhead collided with the axe. The spearhead was smooth and did not have a sharp edge. The spinning force was even more bizarre, to the point that it could even form an arc that was visible to the naked eye. With just a touch and a spin, the spearhead pierced through the huge axe. Boo! The rod nodded. The spearhead pierced through the throat of the huge native. The bizarre penetrative force instantly pierced through his throat. Boom! The thick spearhead continued to spin as it pierced through the huge native's throat, creating a huge hole the size of a bowl. The neck of the huge native was extremely thick. If the wound was small with his vitality, he wouldn't die at all. Kill! The huge native's neck was pierced through, but he still widened his eyes and waved his shield. Dongbu Shuang hurriedly retreated. So. He rapidly increased the distance between them. The huge native stood there with his eyes wide open. Following which, he grabbed his neck with one hand, but it was useless. The hole was too big. Even his powerful vitality was unable to save him. He stood there for a full 2 breaths of time before collapsing. Hua! Immediately, some of the spectating transcendents stood up. All of them looked in astonishment at the huge native who had fallen to the ground. He won. The way Dongbu Shuang won caused many of the transcendents to be shocked. This Dongbu Shuang's spear technique is a fusion of fire and water when he fights in close combat, combining strength and gentleness. When he is gentleness, his defense is perfect without any flaws. When he is fierce, he is also incomparably ferocious. Furthermore, when the fierce spear technique changes into the gentle spear technique, it is incomparably natural. That bumpkin clearly had no openings, but after so many head-on collisions, he created openings. Amazing! Many of the transcendents sighed in admiration. Transcendents who walked the extreme path were powerful, but their flaws were also very obvious. Transcendents like Dongbu Shuang, who had both offense and defense, combining strength and gentleness, were the hardest to deal with. But in reality, very few transcendents would choose this path, because their energy was limited. Walking the extreme path would allow them to easily become stronger. To be perfect in many aspects, the energy required was too much. Dong! Following the sound of the drum in the Hall of Life and Death, not only were the countless mortals excited, even the spectating transcendents stood up. Those that did not stand up also sat up to watch carefully. Probably only Cloud Fog City Lady Boo, the #1 killing god, Old Granny Yi, and a few others could still casually watch. The 6th match was about to begin. The 6th match, when Qiu Qibai reached the 2nd level of Realms of Myriad Existences, he only won 6 matches. The 6th match. Dongbu Shuang took a deep breath. This crucial match would definitely be much harder than the previous one. Hua! A figure descended from the sky. It was a 2-meter tall man with long green hair. His body was sturdy, his face was like a sculpture, and his hair was lush. Just by standing there, he emitted an indescribable aura. Chapter 118. The moment he landed on the ground, a majestic wave of water immediately condensed in the battleground, transforming into a huge whirlpool that coiled around the green-haired man. Water? Playing with water with me? The green-haired man sneered. At the same time, with his body as the center, a terrifying chill instantly spread out in all directions. The originally turbulent waves were all frozen with crackling sounds, and the huge whirlpool of water was still in the shape of a whirlpool even after it was frozen. The temperature in the battle arena also plummeted. So cold, Dongwu Shuiying could feel the bone-piercing chill, and his body started to freeze. With the thought, Dongwu Shuiying's transcendent Do Qi started to flow rapidly, shattering the ice on his body. However, the surrounding chill started to condense again. Dongwu Shuiying could only rely on his transcendent Do Qi to dispel and shatter the ice. If he were to stop, he would probably be frozen into an ice sculpture. Dongwu Shuiying tried to use the power of the fire in the world, but as the chill spread out, the power of the fire was expelled the moment he tried to use it. So cold. I have transcendent Do Qi to protect my body. My body has also become strong due to the awakening of my primordial bloodline, but I can still feel the bone-piercing chill. Dongwu Shuiying was shocked. This chill would probably freeze an ordinary legend knight to death. Ordinary newly advanced transcendents with weak bodies would also shiver in fear. He had just broken through to the mid-phase sky realm, which was why his sixth opponent was so powerful. Other than the bone-piercing chill, the boundless chill also produced a powerful binding force, as though 100,000 jin of weight was pressing down on his body. Chill suppression. He was afraid that he could only display 60 to 70% of his strength. This green-haired man in front of him was indeed worthy of being classified as a mid-transcendent native. Human, come. Let me see how many tricks you have up your sleeves. The green-haired man sneered. A layer of silvery white ice covered his body, making him look like a man of ice. Humph! The transcendent qi on the surface of Shuiying's body was constantly circulating, shattering the frost. At the same time, he turned into an afterimage as he flew across the waves of frost. Within moments, he arrived in front of the green-haired male. Who? The long spear transformed into countless spear shadows, strange and unpredictable. The green-haired man was wearing a pair of silver gloves, and he tried to grab hold of Dongwu Shuiying's spear. However, when his fingers touched the spear, he felt that it was slippery, and it was hard for him to grab hold of it. The tip of the spear spun and pierced into his body. Chi. The black spear pierced into the green-haired man's body, chest and throat. However, it only left a white spot on the layer of ice on the green-haired man's body. Furthermore, the protective layer of ice on the green-haired man's body was still glowing. Even if it was a white spot, it would instantly recover. What a strange spear technique. I couldn't even catch it. That gave me a fright. I was wondering how powerful it would be, said the green-haired man with a smile. Humph! Dongwu Shuiying's spear technique changed, becoming incomparably ferocious. His spear technique was imbued with flames, causing its might to skyrocket. Bang bang bang! The green-haired man easily blocked the spear with his palms. The protective layer of ice on his palms cracked and shattered, but the silver-white gloves on his palms were indestructible and easily blocked the spear. Furthermore, he was rapidly closing in, intending to engage in close combat. Dongwu Shuiying immediately retreated. Damn it! Dongwu Shuiying's expression changed. This transcendent aboriginal has also reached the realm of myriad existences. After reaching the realm of myriad existences, this transcendent aboriginal's battle techniques had also become formidable. What about him? If he were to rely on the profound mysteries of the water of myriad existences, he would be able to pierce through the opponent's body, but he wouldn't even be able to break through the protective layer of ice. If he were to rely on the fire of myriad existences, he would be able to break through the protective layer of ice. However, because it was too direct, the opponent could easily defend against it. Both of them had their pros and cons unless he executed the water and fire WRM attack. This was a technique that he created after combining the profound mysteries of the water and fire of myriad existences. He took the advantages of the profound mysteries of water and fire, and combined them together to increase his might. It was just that this move was his final trump card. This transcendent battle of life and death was a rare and safe opportunity to train himself. He had to grab hold of every opportunity. Only at the very end would he be willing to use the water and fire double arm attack. Now that he was using his normal techniques, he could train his profound mysteries of water and fire. As his profound mysteries of water and fire increased, the might of the water and fire double arm attack would increase as well. Haha, human, you've lost for sure. The green-haired man closed in crazily. Under the pressure of the boundless cold qi, Dongbu Shuiying's speed was greatly reduced, and he was unable to escape. He could only rely on his spear to defend. The green-haired man tried to close in on him again and again. Dongbu Shuiying used the sweeping, piercing, crushing, tangling, blocking and other spear techniques of his. He used the profound mysteries of water and fire alternately as he tried his best to hold on. However, everyone could see that Dongbu Shuiying was at an absolute disadvantage. He couldn't threaten the green-haired transcendent aboriginal at all, and was completely suppressed. At the corner of the east viewing area, the hunchbacked old granny revealed a smile. I knew it. This kid is so young. It would be amazing if he could win 6 matches. Beauty Yi, you previously said that this kid wouldn't be able to win 6 matches. The bald, skinny old man, Chao Qing, said proudly. Although Dongbu Shuiying is at a disadvantage, his primordial bloodline hasn't been activated yet. Once it is activated, I believe that winning the 6th match won't be a problem. He's relying on the primordial bloodline. Without it, he wouldn't be able to win 6 matches. Old Granny Yi harumphed coldly. Chao Qing laughed until his mouth became crooked. Beauty, don't forget that we were betting on whether Dongbu Shuiying would be able to win 6 matches. You said that he wouldn't be able to win, so I said that he would win. Who cares if he's relying on the primordial bloodline or not? As long as he wins the 6th match, I'll win this bet. Your 50,000 kilograms of origin stones will belong to me. So be it. Old man, you're about to die. What's the use of 50,000 kilograms of origin stones? Old Granny Yi said unhappily. Even demigods wouldn't bet so much. Only these 2 old fellows who were nearing the end of their lifespans, and treasures didn't have much meaning to them, would casually bet so much. After all, once they died, their treasures would be left to their descendants. Of course it's useful. Can't you give it to my Water Taoist faction's genius disciple? For example, give it to this Dongbu Shuiying. TSK. This is the 100,000 origin stones that I won from the Bloodshed Tavern's #1 killing goddess, Beauty Yi. I'll be happy even if I give it to a junior. Chao Qing said proudly. Count yourself lucky. I calculated wrongly, that's all. Old Granny Yi looked down. This Dongbu Shuiying kid's primordial bloodline is only able to activate his strength. It's a very ordinary type and won't be of much help in a transcendent battle of life and death. He'll probably only win 1 or 2 more matches. I thought that this kid had just stepped into the transcendent realm and was very young, so he should only be at the first level of the realms of myriad existences. I didn't expect him to be able to combine the 2 profound mysteries of water and fire so well, allowing him to fight his way to the 6th match. Old Granny Ye's eyes were sharp. Her original calculations were not wrong. However, Dongbu Shuiying's profound mysteries of water and fire had increased. Although it was still at the first level of the realms of myriad existences, it could be considered to be at a relatively high level. Furthermore, the 2 profound mysteries complemented each other very well. Only then could he fight his way to the 6th match without relying on his strength to activate his strength. A loss is a loss. Chao Qing teased. I was careless and didn't see clearly. Old Granny Yi still wanted to explain. A loss is a loss. Old man Chao Qing continued to attack. You shut up. Old Granny Yi glared. A loss is a loss. Chao Qing smiled crookedly, incomparably proud. You rotten old man, do you still dare to bet? Old Granny Yi gritted her teeth. Chao Qing was startled. I bet that this kid won't win the 8th match. At most he'll stop at the 7th match. Old Granny Yi stared at him. Do you dare to bet? It's still 100,000 origin stones. Chao Qing fell silent. According to his calculations, in order to win the 6th match, Dongbu Shuiying would probably have to activate his strength. Even winning the 7th match would be a bit difficult. There was practically no hope for the 8th match. But after living for so long, one was about to die. Sometimes being willful was just being willful. I'll bet, Chao Qing said. You really dare to bet? Old Granny Yi was shocked. Haha, I won 100,000 origin stones from you before. At worst, I'll just return it to you. Chao Qing laughed. You're really willful. Old Granny Yi smiled, her smile like a flower. More origin stones, willful. Chao Qing said proudly. Mountain Lord He, faction head Si Kongyang, and City Lord Bu were the true hegemons of the human side. The three of them were relatively calm. City Lord Bu was still lying down, casually looking down and drinking wine. She casually said, not bad, it's already the 6th match. But it seems like he'll have to rely on his archaic bloodline to win the 6th match. At most, he'll only be able to win the 7th match. He'll definitely lose the 8th match. City Lord Bu is right. Mountain Lord He and faction head Si Kongyang both laughed in agreement. Chapter 119. Putting aside the powerful demigods, even the other transcendents who had been cultivating for a long time could tell that Dongbu Shuiying was almost at his wits' end. I'll have to rely on my primordial bloodline. This was because in the past half a year, Dongbu Shuiying had been visiting taverns and restaurants to get to know a few transcendents. When those transcendents sensed Dongbu Shuiying's powerful aura, they guessed that he must have awakened his primordial bloodline. Naturally, the topic of the primordial bloodline would be brought up when the spectators were discussing the battle. Thus, most of the transcendents who were spectating the battle knew that Dongbu Shuiying had awakened the primordial bloodline. Everything was as they had expected. The strength of this transcendent native was indeed enough to suppress Dongbu Shuiying. It wouldn't be long before Dongbu Shuiying was defeated, and he would have to activate his primordial bloodline. Phew! Hua! The spear flew in the air. Perhaps it was a strange and unpredictable attack that was like a python that pierced into the enemy's body. Perhaps it was a rolling attack that slashed at the enemy's head. Perhaps it was a tyrannical sweeping attack. Or perhaps it was an instantaneous attack with the spear. Dongbu Shuiying seemed to have become one with the spear as he displayed his spear skills to his heart's content. Awesome, awesome! This kind of hearty and fierce feeling was too refreshing. Dongbu Shuiying shuddered in pleasure from the bottom of his soul. Since young, he had been training his spear arts crazily. Other than his desire to save his parents, he also had a passion for spear arts. Only love that came from the bottom of one's heart. Could one have such astonishing achievements in a situation where there were very few life and death battles? To him, spear arts were the pursuit of his spiritual world. Even if he had become a spear master, his spear skill still had not reached its peak. He comprehended the nature of heaven and earth, absorbing the profound mysteries of heaven and earth, constantly perfecting his spear techniques. He had comprehended the fire of all creation and the water of all creation. It made his marksmanship even more perfect. This was a battle of life and death. It allowed him to display his spear arts with all his might. The spear arts that he had comprehended and polished could be displayed to his heart's content, allowing him to see the might of every single move and stance. Only in actual combat could he better verify his spear skills. The 5th match's opponent was a fair and square suppression, while the 6th match's opponent was a close combat. Different fighting styles would test his spear skills from different aspects. My spear art is still not good enough. There are still many weaknesses in my defense and close combat. My spear must be softer. It's not powerful enough either. The spear's explosive power isn't satisfying enough. Dongbu Shuiying's cultivation method was different from others. Others might feel the wind or the water. On the other hand, Dongbu Shuiying was training his spear, pursuing perfection in his spear arts. To him, the profound mysteries of the heaven and earth were like elements. He took those elements and fused them into his spear art. He felt that if the spear art was too hard, it would break easily. If it was too hard and fierce, it would lack tenacity and continuity. Therefore, he comprehended the water of all creations. He even combined the two together. This was the natural result of pursuing perfection in spear techniques. During the battle, Dongbu Shuiying had more thoughts about his spear techniques. He would temporarily keep these thoughts in his heart and slowly ponder over them when he was free. No wonder so many people like to train themselves in the midst of life and death situations. Such battles are too beneficial to my spear arts. Dongbu Shuiying felt as though his mind was filled with inspiration. He discovered the many imperfections in his spear arts. and these imperfections were the direction of his cultivation. A single life and death battle is much more beneficial than 100 days of training. Boom boom boom, Dongbo Shuiying was one with his spear. Even though he was at a complete disadvantage, he was still filled with tenacity. Using a combination of strength and gentleness, he managed to endure the suppression of the green-haired man for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Pooh! The spear was pressed against his chest, and Dongbo Shuiying was forced to retreat continuously. His feet tapped the ground repeatedly as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. After being suppressed for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Dongbo Shuiying's injuries were severe. His transcendent Do Qi was also greatly depleted. I can't hold on much longer. Dongbo Shuiying understood this point. Die. The green-haired transcendent native was enraged as well. He didn't expect that his opponent would be able to endure for the time it took to brew a cup of tea even though he had the upper hand. His attacks became even more ferocious as he closed in on Dongbo Shuiying, killing him crazily. Furthermore, the terrifying cold qi also caused Dongbo Shuiying's speed to slow down, and his agility to become weaker as well. There was no way for him to escape. Die! His palm suddenly pierced through the spear and pierced towards Dongbo Shuiying's chest, wanting to pierce through Dongbo Shuiying's chest. Amen? A demigod from the infernal palace who was in charge of everything looked down. His expression changed as he prepared to intervene at any moment. Ha! Dongbo Shuiying's spear suddenly rotated. The end of the spear was like a meat grinder as it twisted around the arm that had pierced through. The transcendent native laughed coldly, and didn't seem to care about it at all. Spear techniques required the profound mystery of flames of myriad things to pierce through the layer of ice protecting one's body. Just the twisting of the spear would only have a slight defensive effect, and wouldn't be able to break through the layer of ice protecting one's body. With the strength of his body, he would be able to withstand the twisting of the spear and continue to pierce through Dongbo Shuiying's chest. Boom! A cold glint flashed across Dongbo Shuiying's eyes as a faint blood-red aura rose from the surface of his body. Power bloodline burst. Boom! His arm twisted violently. Gotcha! The green-haired man's thick right forearm was completely twisted and broken, and even his bones were protruding out. Ah! The green-haired man's expression changed as he retreated rapidly. Losing an arm was a small matter. After all, the recovery rate of a transcendent native was extremely high. However, Dongbo Shuiying's strength had actually increased explosively, and he seemed to be even stronger than him. As he retreated rapidly, how fast was the spear in Dongbo Shuiying's hands? In an instant, the spear transformed into a shocking arc as it pierced towards the green-haired man. The green-haired man hurriedly used his left hand to block. However, the spear was infused with the profound mysteries of water, and he wasn't able to defend against it at all. The spear passed through his hand, and the green-haired man tried his best to dodge it. With a poochie sound, the spear pierced into the right side of his chest. The green-haired man continued to retreat at high speed. He pulled out his spear, and a bloody hole appeared on his chest. However, the spear didn't pierce through his heart. To a transcendent native, it could only be considered a light injury. Die for me. At the same time that Dongbo Shuiying's spear left the green-haired man's body, Dongbo Shuiying swiftly followed up. With a flip of his hand he slashed down furiously. Dongbo Shuiying's spear art was too fast. First it was a strangulation followed by a stab. Finally it was a swift slash. One was chasing the green-haired man from the front, while the other was retreating backwards. Naturally, the speed at which he retreated was much slower. The reason why he retreated backwards was because the green-haired man had to face Dongbo Shuiying head-on. Under such a close distance, how could he possibly have his back facing such a terrifying opponent? Hong! With a flip of his hand, the spear slashed down with boundless might. The green-haired man could only block with a single hand. Accompanied by a loud sound, the spear pressed down on his arm and slashed down on the green-haired man's head. A loud sound echoed. The green-haired man's eyes were wide open. At the same time, his entire body was embedded into the ice below. Fresh blood flowed down from the top of his head, and the insides of his head had long been smashed into paste. He was dead beyond death. Good. Spectacular. Awesome. Too powerful. He actually managed to turn the tables around just like that. In the blink of an eye, that transcendent native died. The countless mortals watching from the west were extremely excited. Even the legend knights and mages were shocked. Previously, Dongbu Shuiying was completely suppressed. He was suppressed for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. However, when Dongbu Shuiying erupted with power, it only took a strangulation, a stab and a furious slash, and the native transcendent's life was taken away. How fast was Dongbu Shuiying's movements? Only the Star Realm mortals could barely see the afterimages of Dongbu Shuiying's spear techniques when he counterattacked. But they still felt extremely delighted. Amazing! Jingqiu was also extremely excited. She was excited and happy for Dongbu Shuiying. Before watching the battle, she had already understood about the transcendent battle of life and death. According to what she knew, it was already an amazing feat to be able to win 6 matches. It was said that the number 1 ranked on the Saint rankings, the Eternal Wind Knight Qiu Qibai, had won 6 matches in the past. Dongbu Shuiying, who was even younger, had also won 6 matches. She was extremely happy for him. It was as if she had won. This Dongbu Shuiying has really activated his primordial bloodline. Looks like this is the limit of his strength. He has to activate his bloodline. I reckon that his 7th match might be a little uncertain. Perhaps he might be able to win if his luck is good. However, I'm afraid that he will definitely lose the 8th match. And then, even after activating his primordial bloodline, he is almost at his limit. He is already very powerful. How old is he? He was able to reach the 6th match without activating his primordial bloodline. This is already something to be proud of. The Transcendents all made their own evaluations. Even the demigods, including Vice Faction Head Chao Qing, Faction Head Si Kongyang, Mountain Lord He, and the demigods of the Infernal Palace, all had the same evaluation. They were still rather appreciative of Dongbu Shuiying. They felt that the first time Dongbu Shuiying had publicly revealed his strength was slightly better than what they had expected. Dongbu Shuiying's profound mysteries of water and fire were not bad. Furthermore, they fused well with each other. Could be considered a small surprise. Of course, it was only a small surprise. Chapter 120. The second round has ended. Rest for 2 hours and begin the third round. A loud voice rang through the entire Hall of Life and Death. There was a hint of joy in his voice. Because most of the new Transcendents did not have the qualifications to start the third round, as the envoy in charge of the Infernal Palace, he rarely had the chance to say such words. Hong Long Long, the doors of the Hall of Life and Death slowly opened. Countless mortals and even Transcendents were still discussing Dongbu Shuiying. Every single new Transcendent who was able to enter the third round was extremely outstanding and worthy of respect. Dongbu Shuiying, who was in the arena, walked towards the open side door in the corner. In the garden of the side hall, Dongbu Shuiying stood there with a pensive look on his face. He held a dawn stone in his hand as he absorbed and replenished his energy. However, he did not expend too much energy in the previous battle. In the end, he activated his power bloodline and instantly defeated his opponent. Dongbu Shuiying absorbed the primordial energy of heaven and earth from the dawn stone. In just the time taken to brew a cup of tea, he had recovered to his peak condition. With a flip of his hand, Dongbu Shuiying took out a spear and started practicing his spear arts. The might of my spear arts is still too weak. The explosive power is not pure enough. Dongbu Shuiying stood at his original position. With a twist of his wrist, the spear drew an arc in the air and pierced out. When the spear pierced out, it was accompanied by flames and an astonishing explosive force. The impact of the spear in the air collided with the wall of the garden, but the wall was not damaged at all. I have to be more direct when I explode. Being sloppy will only affect my explosive power. In the previous battle, Dongbu Shuiying had an epiphany and discovered many problems with his spear arts. Even after the battle ended, he was still immersed in his thoughts as he tried to perfect his spear arts. Pooh! The spear pierced out again and again. Occasionally there would be some changes. Dongbu Shuiying continued to ponder, trying to find a more reasonable spear art. With flames surrounding him, he could feel the endless mysteries contained within the natural flames, trying to find what he needed. Half an hour later. This time it will definitely work. Dongbo Shuiying's eyes lit up as he tried to attack with his spear again. The spear was like a flaming meteor as fast as lightning. It suddenly pierced out, leaving a trail of flames in the air. Clean and tidy. It looked ordinary, and its aura was not as strong as before. But its power was more condensed, and its attack power was more ferocious. Previously, I was too superficial and blindly pursued the explosive power of the flames. In reality, when the explosive power is completely condensed into a single line, the power will be even stronger. A look of joy appeared on Dongbo Shuiying's face, and he immediately struck out with his spear once more. Pew-pew-pew. Spear afterimages flashed, and the sound of the spear stabbing through the air was much softer. However, streaks of meteor trails could be seen, and they did not dissipate even after a long time. The power was completely condensed, and its might increased greatly. With a single thought, Dongbo Shuiying was able to control the power of the heaven and earth flames, and it was obvious that his control had increased significantly. Countless flame energies converged, forming an even more condensed and scorching flame. The pressure of the flames increased greatly. Second level of myriad creations. Dongbo Shuiying smiled. Profound of Fire has reached the second level of myriad creations. With a breakthrough in his realm, his control over the energy of the heaven and earth would undergo a qualitative change. After staying in the underground palace for 6 years, his Profound of Fire had increased by a huge amount. After stepping into the transcendent realm for half a year, his Profound of Fire had increased by quite a bit. The accumulation from the life and death battles had finally allowed Dongbo Shuiying to be enlightened, and his Profound of Fire had stepped into the second level. I never expected this. This is truly unexpected. Everyone else would break through during the battle. I actually broke through during the 2 hours of rest. Dongbo Shuiying laughed involuntarily as he shook his head speechlessly. My Profound of Fire has reached the second level of myriad creations, and I am close to the third round. I don't have the time to ponder over the Profound of Water. I should hurry and perfect my Water and Fire WRM kill. The Water and Fire WYRM kill was the first killing technique that Dongbo Shuiying had comprehended after stepping into the transcendent realm. It was a terrifying technique that combined the Profound of Fire and Water together. The reason why Dongbo Shuiying hadn't used it yet was because the might of this technique was too great. Hence, he would rather use his power bloodline first. He continued to train his spear arts. Because only the Profound of Water and Fire had improved, the Water and Fire WRM kill, which combined these two profound mysteries, would be even more powerful. Right now, the Profound of Water is slightly weaker than the Profound of Fire. This Water and Fire WRM kill might be affected. Dongbo Shuiying immediately executed it. Wang! The spear revolved like a WRM emerging from the water. An intense rotational force rapidly gathered at the tip of the spear. The extreme yin turned into extreme yang, transforming into a fire dragon. However, this fire dragon was much more ferocious than before, and its might was much more condensed. The shockwave that was as thick as an arm was much clearer, and it instantly struck the wall far away, causing ripples to form on the surface of the wall. When it explodes, it is much more condensed, and its might is much stronger. Dongbo Shuiying revealed a smile. It was much easier than he had expected. In just his first attempt, he had already executed the Water and Fire WRM kill. Looks like Dongbo Shuiying, am going to give them a huge scare this time. Dongbo Shuiying was extremely happy. According to his original plan, he would train himself as much as possible in the transcendent battle of life and death. When he could no longer endure it, he would use his power bloodline. If he couldn't win with his power bloodline, he would use his killing technique Water and Fire WRM kill. According to his previous estimations, with the help of the Water and Fire WRM kill, he should have no problem winning the 8th match. However, the 9th match was a little uncertain. Now that his cultivation realm had increased, his profound mysteries of fire had also increased. The power of the Water and Fire WRM kill had also increased greatly. His chances of winning the 9th match was very high, and he might even be able to advance to the 10th match. Win the 9th match? Dongbo Shuiying exclaimed. In the past 10,000 years, the strongest was probably the 9th match. Even though his primordial bloodline was ordinary, He was still able to win the 9th match. How dazzling would he be? If he were to win the 10th match, it would be even more shocking. This is the first time I will be able to reveal myself in front of all the transcendence of the human race. Dongbo Shuang thought, naturally, I have to give it my all. I have to give it my all. The more monstrous he was, the more importance the infernal palace would place on him. Based on his understanding of the history of the Xia people, the Xia people had always met with all sorts of dangers. Thus, if he was monstrous enough, he would receive better protection and nurture. Furthermore, if anyone wanted to place a bounty on him, the bounty given by the Bloodshed Tavern would be even more exaggerated. In any case, the more monstrous his performance was, the more benefits he would receive. And I will guarantee the 9th in charge to the 10th, Dongbo Shuang thought. I am really looking forward to it. Dongbo Shuang had been very calm throughout the entire transcendent life and death battle. However, he had a sense of mischief in him. He was looking forward to seeing the dumbfounded transcendence. Very soon, Dongbo Shuang entered the arena once again. Standing in the arena, Dongbo Shuang was extremely calm. He raised his head and looked at the transcendence in the eastern viewing area. He also saw Qiu Qibai, Peng Shan and the other transcendents from Anyang. All of them were smiling at Dongbo Shuang, and some even raised their fists. I will give all of you a huge surprise. Dongbo Shuang sensed the heaven and earth, enveloping the entire arena. After reaching the 2nd level in his realm of myriad existences, Dongbo Shuang's confidence grew. Chapter 121. Dong! A heavy drum sound resounded. A huge figure descended from the sky. It was a 10-meter-tall black ape. The black ape carried a long sledgehammer in its hand. The sledgehammer was also over 10 meters long. A transcendent refiner organism, Dongbo Shuang muttered to himself. The first match of every round was relatively safe. Regardless of whether it was Gong Liang Yuan's battle chi clone, the refiner organism in front of him would at most heavily injure Dongbo Shuang, but not take his life. However, the 8th and 9th matches were all life and death matches. Although it was relatively safe, the difficulty was very high. It wasn't easy for the battle chi clone to win. This refiner organism was even more difficult. Ho! The black ape rushed over with large strides, brandishing its long-handled sledgehammer. Just looking at its might, one could tell that it was extremely terrifying. Dongbo Shuang also activated his power bloodline in an instant. A faint blood-red aura rose as he faced it head-on. Boom boom boom, in the blink of an eye they had exchanged tens of blows. At the same time, Dongbo Shuang felt helpless. This transcendent refiner organism is extremely strong and indestructible. Profound mystery of water, I can't win. The profound mystery of water spear technique was too soft, and not fierce enough. Even when he used his power burst, he couldn't even shake this powerful transcendent refiner organism. Boom! Surging flames instantly spread out. The temperature of the flames was extremely high, and the formless pressure of the flames also enveloped the transcendent refiner organism. The 2nd level of myriad existences? The transcendents who were watching the battle stood up in shock, including the few demigods who were high up in the air. Fall. Dongbo Shuang's battle techniques were obviously far superior to a refiner organism. His figure flickered, and his spear swept horizontally, bringing with it the surging flames as it swept towards the left knee joint of the black ape. Instantly, the black ape's body tilted. Dongbo Shuang then leapt up and fiercely slashed with his spear, directly striking the black ape's face. Pung! The black ape was directly struck to the ground. As a refiner organism, its battle techniques were far from a human transcendent. However, its indestructible body and powerful strength made it very difficult to defeat. Soft and strange attacks were meaningless to it. Only a powerful attack could hurt it. He actually won. City Lord Bu's pair of beautiful eyes faintly flickered with a red light. Looking down, the corner of her mouth slightly rose. I never thought that this little guy would actually reach the 2nd level of the realms of myriad existences. How old is he? Sikong, congratulations, Mountain Lord, he said from the side. Haha. Abidine Sikong Yang laughed and said modestly. He is still very young. He is good now, but it doesn't mean he will be good in the future. Mountain Lord, he indifferently said. To be able to reach the second level of myriad existences in such a short amount of time, stepping into the saint realm shouldn't be a problem. If I can't become a demigod, it's just fun, Si Kongyang said casually. Demigods were the true overlords of this world. The demigods had decided who this world belonged to. Humans had always had the advantage, so this world was ruled by humans. Of course, Saint-tier transcendence and Sky-tier transcendence still had hope. Only the most outstanding among them had a chance of becoming a demigod. Thus, the Infernal Palace allowed these Sky-tier transcendents to go through life and death tempering. Saint Realm transcendents also had to go to various small worlds and even large worlds to adventure. This allowed more demigods to emerge among them. Dongbu Shuang also understood this simple logic. Thus, he wanted to display his brilliance in the transcendent battle of life and death. As long as his brilliance was dazzling enough, the Infernal Palace would pay attention to him and nurture him. His chances of dying on the path of transcendence would also be lower. After all, many Sky-tier transcendents died in the infernal world. Those who truly died of old age were few and far between. Dong, a heavy drum sound rang out. The 8th match had begun. Countless mortals watched nervously and excitedly. The 8th match is coming. I've lived in the Xia capital for more than 80 years, and have watched the transcendent battle of life and death many times. Yet, I've never seen the 8th match. I've never seen it either. This Lord Dongbu Shuang is very young, but he actually made it to the 8th match. The mortals discussed in low voices as they watched nervously. They wanted to see Dongbu Shuang's opponent in the 8th match. While they were excited and nervous, the transcendents were also watching seriously. Many of them were standing to watch. Who? A beautiful figure descended from the sky. It was a 4 to 5 meter tall beautiful golden peacock. However, the eyes of the peacock were blood red. This was the legendary golden magic peacock. It was an extremely powerful demonic beast, and was usually a rank 6 demonic beast. And this golden magic peacock had already broken through to the transcendent realm and possessed the strength of a peak Sky-tier demon peacock. The opponent in the 8th match is a transcendent beast. Dongbu Shuang thought to himself. The 7th match was against a transcendent refiner organism, which had a very low level of danger. The 8th match was against a transcendent beast which was captured by a human. The beast clan and the human clan had been fighting for countless years. Both sides had massacred each other on a large scale. The hatred between the two clans could not be dispelled. The 9th match was against a legendary abyss demon, a demon which had been captured alive by a human. Because there were too few demons that were captured alive, it was decided to be the 9th match. Many demigods would not be able to witness the 9th match of the transcendent battle of life and death. After all, only by winning 8 matches would one have the qualifications to start the 9th match. After killing this transcendent beast, the 9th match will be against the demon. Dongbu Shuang was looking forward to it. You are only a middle phase Sky-tier. You humans are only a demigod, and you think I am your opponent? The golden magic peacock's voice was very sharp. Her long and narrow blood-red eyes stared at Dongbu Shuang. As she spoke, she observed carefully. The intelligence of the beast clan was not inferior to that of humans. She was trying her best to find a flaw in Dongbu Shuang's defense. Endless blazing flames enveloped the area. The power of the flames suppressed the golden magic peacock. The golden magic peacock's body was surrounded by a layer of golden light, isolating all the flames. However, she was secretly shocked. It was obvious that this human's realm was higher than hers. She was only at the first level of myriad existences. She watched from afar but did not take the initiative to attack. Take this. Dongbu Shuang took the initiative to attack. He had to kill his opponent in order to win. Since his opponent was not moving, he would kill his way over. Who? His figure flashed and appeared beside the golden magic peacock. His power bloodline was instantly activated. At this point in time, he had to use his power bloodline in every battle, because if he let his guard down a little, he might lose his life during the battle. A spear shadow that was like a dragon pierced towards his opponent. Shwa! The golden magic peacock's wings flapped. Her figure fluttered and she actually dodged the spear. So fast. Dongbu Shuang was secretly shocked. Xiao xiao xiao, the spear moved like a phantom, bringing along the profound mystery of the water of myriad existences. Mainly, this spear art was more suitable for defense. However, the power was weaker and the speed was slower as well. The golden magic peacock moved erratically. Her figure changed unpredictably. His own spear art was actually unable to hit her. "Your spear is too slow," the golden magic peacock said with a sharp voice. At the same time, she instantly closed in. She flapped her wings fiercely. The edges of her wings were flowing with golden light. Like sharp blades, she slashed over. Dongbu Shuiying instantly gathered his mana. His spear was covered in flames as he swept it horizontally. Pung! The sweeping spear and the wings clashed. The golden magic peacock was only sent flying backwards. Her flying posture was still erratic. Not a single feather on her body was damaged. The 8th match is so difficult. Dongbu Shuiying was slightly shocked. It was harder than he had expected. The feathers on this golden magic peacock's body are too tough. Attacking it is useless. I can only rely on my spear to stab it. Perhaps I might be able to pierce through its feathers and kill it. Chapter 122. The golden magic peacock's movements were erratic. The edges of its wings were as sharp as blades, and its hook-like claws were like curved blades. The profound mystery of the water of myriad creations was too slow, and it was completely useless. Thus, Dongbu Shuiying decided to use the profound mystery of fire that had reached the 2nd level of the realms of myriad creations. It was ferocious and violent, and its spear arts were even faster and more ferocious. Hong! 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 The spear was either slashing, whipping, or piercing. It was as fast as lightning as it engaged in close combat with the golden magic peacock. When the spear pierced the golden magic peacock's wings, feathers would fly everywhere, and wounds would appear. However, the golden magic peacock didn't care about wounds of this degree. She continued to fight in close combat, flapping her wings and attacking with her claws. Even if she suffered some minor injuries, she still wanted to kill the human in front of her. I've already used the profound mystery of fire of myriad creations and activated my power bloodline. Yet, I only managed to pierce through its feathers and injure it lightly? Dongbu Shuiying was speechless. He finally understood the difficulty of the 8th match. It was no wonder that Qi Qiu Bai, who didn't have a primordial bloodline, was defeated in the 7th match. Boom boom boom, amidst the sounds of battle, 2 wounds appeared on Shuiying's body, caused by the golden light blades that had left his body. He had never thought that the golden light on the surface of the magic golden peacock could leave its body. Fortunately, its attack power was weak. After piercing through the Do Qi and facing Dongbu Shuiying's powerful body, it only managed to leave a few shallow wounds. Dongbu Shuiying only had 2 wounds, while the golden magic peacock had dozens of wounds. However, it was obvious that she was more valiant. To her huge body, these small wounds were not worth mentioning. Just once. As long as my wings or claws touch him once, his body will be torn apart. The golden magic peacock desired to win, because only by winning could she regain her freedom. The battle between the two was extremely intense. Be it the countless mortals or transcendents, they were all watching carefully. It was extremely rare for a newly advanced transcendent to reach the 8th match. I can't let this go on. Dongbu Shuiying's expression changed. My stamina has already been depleted by more than half. I still need to prepare for the 9th match. According to the rules, the 9th round would follow after the 8th round. The power bloodline's activation consumed a lot of stamina. Although his physical strength had increased a lot after he became a transcendent, he couldn't hold on for too long. He had to conserve his strength for the 9th match. Although this kind of intense battle was a rare opportunity to hone his spear skills, the 9th match's opponent was the legendary abyssal demon. Dongbu Shuiying really wanted to take a look at it. Hua! 2 gigantic claws that were more than 1 meter long swiped at him again. They were as fast as phantoms and extremely ghostly. Buzz! The spear in Dongbu Shuiying's hand moved. The spear rotated in an astonishing arc, and the violent rotation surpassed any of his previous moves. As it rotated, it created a strong flow of water around it. The rotational force of the spear shaft was like a vortex that continuously gathered towards the center, which was the tip of the spear. The entire spear revolved around the water, and when it pierced forward, it was like a flood dragon emerging from the water. Furthermore, the rotational force had completely changed from extreme yin to extreme yang. The flood dragon that emerged from the water transformed into a fire dragon. Boom! The moment one of the claws came into contact with the spear, it felt an extremely strange rotational force that easily deflected the claws. The spear instantly pierced into the demonic golden peacock's abdomen. The layers of tough feathers on her body were instantly pierced through, and the spear that was more than 1 meter long had completely pierced into her body. Dongbu Shuiying's ultimate move. Water and Fire Flood Dragon Strike. Boom! The transcendent Do Qi within the spear also exploded within the demonic golden peacock's body. Following that, Dongbu Shuiying immediately pulled out his spear and retreated to prevent the demonic golden peacock's crazy counterattack. He pulled out his spear and retreated. The demonic golden peacock staggered and fell to the ground. Fresh blood flowed out from the wound on her abdomen. Her blood-red eyes were filled with madness and disbelief. Ew! How could you? Die! She was severely injured, and she knew that she had to kill this human as soon as possible. Otherwise, the longer she waited, the more serious her injuries would be, and she would definitely die. This was because her injuries this time were too severe. Fortunately, she was a transcendent demon beast, and her body was extremely strong. Once again she attacked in a frenzy. Shuiying, on the other hand, floated backwards. Occasionally, he would casually use his spear to parry the incoming attacks. After delaying for 2 breaths of time, the injuries of the magic golden light peacock worsened. Even its combat power was rapidly declining. Shuiying did not even need to display the water and fire flood dragon attack. Instead, with just a casual strike, the heavily injured magic golden light peacock did not even have the time to parry the attack before it was struck on its head. Bang! The heavy strike landed on her head. There were fewer feathers here, and it was her true weakness. This strike caused her brain to turn into mush, and blood flowed out from her nose and ears. Immediately she fell to the ground. Her wings twitched a few times before she stopped moving. The demonic golden peacock was dead. 8th match victory. This is. When Shuiying displayed his killing move, Water and Fire Flood Dragon Attack, instantly heavily injuring the magic golden peacock, those powerful demigods watching the battle from the east were truly startled. Even the cold and indifferent number 1 killing god, Old Granny Yi, or the stronger City Lord Bu, all of them stared at Dongbu Shuiying in shock. Did you guys see that spear just now? City Lord Bu watched carefully. I saw it. Faction head Si Kongyang's eyes were filled with joy. It's a move that fuses the profound mysteries of water and fire. Mountain Lord, he said. Not only did he fuse it, he was also able to use it so perfectly. Impressive. At such a young age, he's able to fuse the profound mysteries of water and fire, and even use it in battle. It can be said that this young man will definitely comprehend the true meaning of water and fire in the future. Truly an impressive young man. City Lord Bu looked at Si Kongyang with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. It's a pity that you, Si Kongyang, have earned it. Ha ha ha. Si Kongyang's laughter was clear and bright. True meaning of water and fire. This was an extremely powerful true meaning. Although it couldn't compare to the true meaning of space cleavage, it was still ranked at the top. In order to comprehend the true meaning of water and fire, one would need to comprehend both the profound mysteries of water and fire. The hardest part was to fuse the 2 profound mysteries into one. Only then would one be able to comprehend the true meaning of water and fire. Fusing different profound mysteries was the most difficult. And the first step was the most important. Dongbu Shuiying was able to take this first step at such a young age. He still had a long time ahead of him. With this level of comprehension, comprehending the true meaning of water and fire was practically a done deal. Perhaps the true meaning of water and fire isn't his final limit. Who knows? He might be able to comprehend the legendary true meaning of yin yang. Mountain Lord, he laughed. Don't think so far ahead. Comprehending the true meaning of water and fire is already not bad, Si Kongyang said. True meaning of yin yang? That was a legendary true meaning that was above the true meaning of space cleavage. This true meaning, from the birth of the Xia people until now, not a single person was able to comprehend it. The reason why they knew of the true meaning of yin yang was because of the large amount of cultivation information passed down from the deity world. It recorded this extremely powerful and heaven-defying true meaning. The profound mysteries of water and fire, the profound mysteries of hardness and gentleness, the pure profound mysteries of extreme yang, or even the profound mysteries of extreme yin, all of them had the hope to develop further and evolve into the true meaning of yin-yang. However, it was just a hope. Not a single person from the Xia people had ever achieved it. Thus, Xikong Yang and Mountain Lord he could only say this. To be able to comprehend the true meaning of water and fire, they were already very satisfied with Dongbo Shuiying. That's right. This Dongbo Shuiying won the 8th match. Isn't the 9th match about to begin? City Lord Bu suddenly raised her eyebrows and smiled. She was indeed a peerless beauty. Her smile was so beautiful that it could move one's soul. Speaking of which, Mountain Lord He, Xikong Yang, we haven't seen the 9th match yet, right? Mountain Lord He and Xikong Yang were speechless. The 9th match of the transcendent battle of life and death? They really hadn't seen it before. Because winning the 8th match was simply too difficult. Dongbo Shuiying was not only at the 2nd level of the realms of myriad existences, he also had a primordial bloodline. Furthermore, he had fused the profound mysteries of water and fire together, and grasped the water and fire flood dragon attack. The last time the 9th match was 2,000 years ago. Only old Madame Yi and the rest have seen it. Mountain Lord he smiled. We indeed haven't seen it before. Who would have thought that we would have the chance to see the 9th match of the transcendent battle of life and death? Dong! Following the sound of a drum. Everyone, the opponent for the 9th match will be an abyss demon. Because of the lack of preparation, the infernal palace will need an hour to prepare. Everyone can rest for an hour. After an hour the 9th match will begin. Let me say one more thing. Our infernal palace hall of life and death has not held the 9th match for 2,300 years. Everyone should thank Dongbo Shuiying for giving us the chance to see a living abyss demon. The voice of the infernal palace's emissary carried a hint of happiness. Chapter 123. A living abyss demon? Not to mention the mortals who were about to go crazy, even the transcendents were in an uproar. Quick, quick, come to the Hall of Life and Death. It's going to be the 9th match soon. There's still an hour before the 9th match of the transcendent battle of life and death. The 9th match is the abyss demon. Only an hour left. Although more than half of the transcendents had arrived, there were still a few who were either adventuring, training in seclusion, or too lazy to come. In short, there were still many transcendents who had yet to arrive. The transcendents who were present began to spread the news. Other than the high and mighty demigods, the majority of the transcendents had never seen a demon before. In their entire lives there were many who had never seen a demon before. Although in some stories and legends, there would be mention of the abyss demon. In reality, the abyss demon was a type of transcendent life form that came from the abyss demon. The abyss demon was faintly connected to countless material worlds. Occasionally, a spatial ripple would form a spatial tunnel, allowing a large number of abyss demons to enter. Since ancient times, the invasion of the abyss demon had occurred frequently, but the interval between each invasion was irregular. Sometimes it would occur 8 to 10 times in 10,000 years, and sometimes not even once in 10,000 years. The shortest lifespan of a transcendent was 800 years, and the longest was 3,000 years for a demigod. Thus, it was very normal for a transcendent to have never seen a demon before. I'm really sorry I won again. Old man Chao Qing crossed his legs and proudly picked up a large green fruit and took a big bite. Aren't you afraid of breaking your teeth? Old Madame Yi harumphed. Sigh, another 50,000 kilograms of origin stones, I'm so happy. Chao Qing nibbled on the fruit and looked at the back of Dongbo Shuiying, who was walking barefoot to the side door to rest. The smile on his face grew wider. Our Water Taoist faction's young lad is really not bad. At such a young age, he has already started to fuse the profound mysteries of water and fire, and even created a spear technique. The true meaning of water and fire shouldn't be a problem. Look at how proud you are. Old Madame Yi curled her lips. She was still very calm. Anyway, she was already close to the end of her lifespan, so she didn't care much about origin stones. For this Dongbo Shuiying, I'm going to suggest to open a meeting of elders. Chao Qing suddenly said. Open a meeting of elders? Old Madam Yi looked at him in shock. Little brother Snow Eagle, well fought, beautifully fought, wah. The group of transcendents from Tranquil Sun Province were eating and drinking happily, especially Cheng Ling Shu. Cheng Ling Shu's name had the word Shu in it, but at this moment she didn't look like a lady at all, nor did she have the calmness of a female magician. Instead, he was the most carefree and cheerful, because she had won the bet. She went to place a bet on the transcendent battle of life and death. The normal odds were too low, but the odds of at least 7 matches were very high. That was why she took the gamble. Those who dared to set the odds had also gathered detailed information about Dongbua Xueying. They had even gathered all sorts of information about Dongbua Xueying since he was young. They had even asked a demigod to comment on it. The banker also believed that Dongbua Xueying's primordial bloodline was very ordinary, so the possibility of him winning 6 rounds was relatively low. Old Madam Yi had bet with Chao Qing that Dongbua Xueying would not be able to win 6 rounds. As for winning 7 matches, the probability was extremely low. Little sister Ling Shu must have earned quite a bit this time. You must treat us to a good meal. Peng Shan teased. It's just a few 100 kilograms of origin stones. It's not much, not much. Cheng Ling Shu was very pleased. What do I count for? Little brother Snow Eagle earned more. The more times you win the transcendent battle of life and death, the more contribution points you earn. If you want to rip off a rich person, you should rip off little brother Snow Eagle. It's going to be the 9th match soon. Qiu Qibai smiled, making the Infernal Palace bring out a live abyss demon. I'm afraid those old fellows of the Infernal Palace will feel heartache. I've never seen an abyss demon before. Ziche Gufeng, Hai Rujan and the rest were all looking forward to it. They were transcendent mages and were very interested in researching the abyss demon. It was a pity that they, as Sky Realm transcendent mages, did not have the qualifications to meet an abyss demon. Almost all the transcendents were discussing the abyss demon that was about to appear. Most of them were excited and looking forward to it. Abyss demon. I've only seen detailed introductions of abyss demons in books. Our Xia people's world has not been invaded by abyss demons for over 8,000 years. The Infernal Palace is actually willing to bring out a living abyss demon. TSK. A newly advanced transcendent has already reached the 9th match. No matter how reluctant they are, they still have to bring it out. Everyone was looking forward to it. Abyss demons were transcendent life forms from the dark abyss. They were even more unique than the primordial life forms. At the same level, abyss demons were stronger than the primordial life forms. The dark abyss was an enemy of the entire deity world. For example, the demonic faction worshipped a demonic god from the dark abyss. That powerful demonic god clearly knew that the temple of the earth god occupied the faith of the Xia people's world. Yet, he still dared to snatch the souls and faith of the temple of the earth god. Clearly, he did not care about the deity world's great power behind the temple of the earth god. The demonic faction even bestowed deity-rank secret techniques and methods to increase one's strength. This was why many transcendents were attracted to them. As different life forms, their lifespans were also different. Some transcendent beasts had extremely long lifespans, and so did the abyss demons. 8,000 years ago, when the abyss demons invaded, some of the weaker ones were captured alive and kept in captivity. The demigod transcendent mages had the opportunity to study them. Some of the abyss demons died of old age. Some were tortured to death by the research. Some were still alive and even gave birth to children. Their children would grow up and become transcendents on their own. Thus, the Infernal Palace kept a small number of abyss demons in captivity for research. However, the transcendent mages had to use them sparingly. Ordinary transcendents had no chance of seeing them. Long ago, the first 12 matches of the transcendent battle of life and death had already been decided. The 9th match would be a demon. This had already become a custom. As time went on, the Infernal Palace would bring out rarer and rarer opponents. Time ticked by. Even the transcendents felt that time was running out. In this half an hour, new transcendents rushed over. There were even some demigods guarding their nests who sent out a chi avatar to watch. To the demigods, since it was already the 9th match, this transcendent battle of life and death was interesting and worth watching. The demon was locked up in the Infernal Palace. Capturing one was a piece of cake. However, The infernal palace purposely allowed the battle of life and death to rest for half an hour so that some transcendents could rush over. Of course, those who were too far away would not be able to make it in time. Who? Dongbo Shuang exhaled a breath. When he was young, he would often dream of moving unhindered in all directions, of killing demons, and even drinking with the deities. Who would have thought that after 20 years, he would actually have to fight with demons? Demon, let me see how powerful you are. You actually have such a great reputation, causing countless humans to fear you. Dongbo Shuang walked barefooted, wearing a black robe, and directly walked out from the side door in the corner. He stepped into the arena. The scene of the battle was still as beautiful as before. Within a radius of 3 to 4 li, only Dongbo Shuang was present. Countless mortals beside him were cheering loudly. Their cheers were like waves that shook the entire hall of life and death. They were cheering for Dongbo Shuang. They were also incomparably excited because they were about to see the legendary demon. Dong. Following the sound of a drum. Everyone. The opponent for the 9th match is a demon from the dark abyss. The infernal palace's emissary's voice resounded throughout the hall of life and death. The hall of life and death was completely silent. Dongbo Shuang was also holding onto a spear as he watched silently. Although he had many thoughts in his mind, since the battle was about to begin, there was only one thought in his mind: kill the demon. Who? Following the fluctuation of space, a figure descended from above. At this moment, all the mortals and transcendents had their eyes on the figure. Dongbo Shuang also raised his head and stared at the figure that was descending slowly. Chapter 124. The slowly descending figure naturally emitted a surging and terrifying black aura. This black aura represented the most negative aura, containing all darkness, violence, destruction, desire, and so on. As a transcendent expert, Dongbo Shuang's willpower was also extraordinary, but he still felt an inexplicable sense of fear towards this aura. This was an instinct of life. The dark abyss was the ultimate place of destruction and darkness. As a transcendent life form of the dark abyss, the devil naturally carried this terrifying aura. This aura was also known as the devil aura by humans. Dongbo Shuang quickly suppressed that trace of fear and maintained his calm. This is a devil? Dongbo Shuang carefully observed the appearance of the devil. In the center of the dark aura was a strong humanoid creature about 2 meters tall. Its entire body was covered with a layer of dark purple scales, and there were even 2 purple spiraled curved horns on its head. The most eye-catching thing was that it had a total of 4 arms. The arms were thick and strong, and the fingers were covered with thick scales and sharp nails that were not inferior to divine weapons. 4 arms. Dongbo Shuang thought to himself, it should be an expert in close combat. This is a devil? This is an abyss devil. The battlegrounds array completely isolated all auras. The terrifying aura emitted by the devil inside the battleground could not be touched by the array at all. However, countless mortals felt an inexplicable sense of fear just by looking at it from afar. Actually, the distance was very far, and their eyesight was also average. In their eyes, the figure of the devil was very small. However, they could not suppress the fear. Their legs became weak, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably as their hearts tightened. Does an abyss devil look like this? I heard that almost all devils have scales, and the defense of the scales is very strong. Seems like it. Look, that devil has a pair of horns. It is called devil's horns, and most devils have horns. The transcendent experts were isolated by the array, so they were not afraid. They looked curiously, and then compared it with some of the information they knew. Everyone was discussing it, and it was obvious that they were quite excited. Almost all of them were seeing an abyss devil for the first time. Demon Lavda looked at the barefooted black-clothed young man standing in front of him. He carefully observed him. He was very clear that when facing any prey, he had to carefully observe them to find their weakness and then kill them with one strike. This is a rare opportunity for me. As long as I can win, I can have 1,000 years of leisure. Demon Lavda was full of desire. From the day he was born, he had been raised in captivity by humans. Humans captured a group of demons, and a very small number of those demons gave birth to children. Demon Lavda was born to this day to cooperate with all kinds of experiments. Those transcendent mages cut its flesh again and again to study it. That kind of torture was something that it could not escape from. He hates humans. However, humans showed no mercy to demons like them. The transcendent battle of life and death was probably what these captive demons desired the most. As long as they won, humans would not harm them for 1,000 years. He was a newborn demon, so his strength was relatively weak. That was why he was chosen to be Dongbui Shuiying's opponent. Those old demons, even those that came from the dark abyss, were all experienced, cunning, and powerful. They were simply not suitable to be Dongbui Shuiying's opponents. Damn humans, this is a rare opportunity. Even if I kill this human, I won't be punished. Demon Lavda was full of resentment. His bloodline filled him with the desire to slaughter. Any demon was like this. They grew up in the midst of slaughter. The desire in his bloodline and the torture of humans caused his resentment to be extremely heavy. Dongbui Shuiying and Demon Lavda confronted each other for several breaths of time. Finally, Dongbui Shuiying made the first move. Boom, under the shroud of endless flames. After reaching the second level of the realm of myriad existences, the temperature of the flames became even more terrifying. The pressure of the flames also reached 100,000 jin, suppressing Demon Lavda. The surrounding air distorted. Those mortals and transcendents who were watching the battle saw the scene become somewhat distorted. Just this bit of flames? Demon Lavda's sharp nails lightly scratched the surrounding flames. A trace of disdain could be seen at the corner of his mouth. Immediately after, his ice-cold eyes looked towards Dongbui Shuiying. Shua! He suddenly moved, directly charging towards Dongbui Shuiying. Without any warning, he suddenly pounced over. For a moment, all the transcendents who were watching the battle were watching nervously. Almost none of them had seen an abyss demon before, let alone fighting against one. Everyone wanted to see how powerful this demon was. Come at me. Dongbui Shuiying's fighting intent had long been boiling. Seeing that the opponent was charging towards him, he did not hesitate to activate his power bloodline. At the same time, he welcomed the attack with his spear as fast as lightning. The tip of the spear was like thunder and fire, piercing towards the demon's face. Pung! Demon Lavda's forearms were like layers of defense. Just one of his palms slapped on the tip of the spear and was able to push back Dongbui Shuiying. After receiving the spear, Demon Lavda's figure only slightly trembled. His strength is stronger than mine, around 50% stronger. Dongbui Shuiying immediately made a judgment in his heart. Shua shua shua. Both sides quickly exchanged blows. The long spear danced in the air. Whether it was attacking or defending, not a single drop of water could escape. Demon Lavda's forearms also attacked again and again. It was indeed worthy of being an expert in killing. Although it had not reached the realm of myriad existences, its techniques were extremely perfect. Even the structure of its forearms and claws were extremely suitable for killing. The claws could be used to grab and slash like a blade. Chop. It could also be used as a hook to hook onto something. It could even be used to block weapons. The forearms attacked at the same time. Fortunately, Dongbui Shuiying's long spear had an intense rotation, making it unpredictable. Therefore, his weapon was not blocked by the opponent. After exchanging over 10 blows, Dongbui Shuiying and Demon Lavda had a rough understanding of their opponent. The two of them did not use their full strength. They were extremely cautious and wanted to figure out their opponent's methods first. After all, killing moves could only be used at crucial moments or very sudden moments. Only then would the effects be better. Killing in one blow was what they were after. Otherwise, if they used it and missed, then the opponent would definitely be on guard. If they wanted to use the killing move to kill the opponent, the difficulty would increase sharply. Bang! The long spear was as fast as a flood dragon, heading straight for Demon Lavda's head. The demon immediately dodged to the side, wanting to get close and engage in close combat. Scram! When Dongbui Shuiying's spear missed, he immediately exerted his strength and furiously swept towards the left. The long spear carried a ferocious might of flames. This sweep was like a fan shape, covering an extremely wide area. Demon Lavda had no choice but to immediately retreat to create some distance. With a pung sound, the long spear swept towards a huge rock beside Demon Lavda. The scenery of the mountain range in the battlefield was refined and incomparably tough. No matter how fierce the battle between Dongbui Shuiying and the others was, They were not damaged in the slightest. When the long spear swept towards the huge rock, it produced an astonishing rebound force, causing the spear shaft to bend. Bang! With the help of the terrifying rebound force from the huge rock, Dongbo Shuiying immediately moved forward and once again swept towards Demon Lavda. This time, with the help of the rebound force, the long spear swept suddenly and very fast. Demon Lavda didn't have enough time to resist and was ruthlessly whipped by the long spear on the right side of his body. With a bang sound, Demon Lavda was sent flying to the side. At the same time, purple blood flowed out from the demon's mouth and nose under the impact of the sweep. Although this sweep didn't damage the scales, the impact was too strong. The moment Demon Lavda was sent flying, Dongbo Shuiying immediately dashed forward at high speed, catching up to Demon Lavda. Taking advantage of the momentum, Dongbo Shuiying raised the long spear with both hands and furiously chopped down. The power was equally ferocious. Although Demon Lavda vomited blood and was sent flying, he was still prepared to resist the black-clothed youth's pursuit. He raised his forearms at the same time to resist the long spear. Boom! The long spear chopped down. Demon Lavda's body was tyrannical. His forearms were almost undamaged, but he was still fiercely smashed into the mountain rocks on the ground. The mountain rocks were indestructible. The impact caused his internal organs to tremble and his blood to boil. Die! Shuiying chased after him. He continued chasing after him. Demon Lavda fell to the ground and could only hurriedly climb up, wanting to put some distance between them. But since he had the advantage, he naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. He wanted to seize the opportunity to kill this demon in one fell swoop. Dongbo Shuiying thrust his long spear at the same time Demon Lavda hurriedly climbed up and retreated. The long spear's arc was astonishing. It carried an extremely frightening rotation. The rotation brought along a stream of water. The rotational force unceasingly gathered at the tip of the spear. When it gathered at the tip of the spear, countless rotational forces converged. This was the moment when the rotational force was at its most ferocious. With the most ferocious rotation, the spear turned into a fire dragon and stabbed towards Demon Lavda. Killing move. Water and fire flood dragon kill. So fast, Demon Lavda's complexion greatly changed. He hurriedly blocked and barely managed to grab the tip of the long spear with one hand. Chi! That frightening rotational force made Demon Lavda feel that the long spear was very slippery. It easily slipped out of his hand and directly stabbed towards his chest. At this moment, a frightening penetrative force completely erupted. Like an electric drill, the spear instantly pierced through the deep purple scales on the surface of Demon Lavda's body and pierced through his chest. Transcendent Do Chi passed through the long spear and instantly exploded inside Demon Lavda's body. However, Demon Lavda's body was also very tough. The Transcendent Do Chi was only able to destroy a part of his chest. Demon Lavda seemed to have gone crazy. Not only did he not retreat, but he also wanted to get closer. The claws on his forearms were about to tear Dongbo Shuiying apart. Dongbo Shuiying instantly pulled out his spear and immediately retreated. He tried his best to pull away from Demon Lavda, not giving the opponent any opportunity to counterattack. Goo goo. Demon Lavda stood there with purple blood flowing out of his mouth, but he didn't care at all. On the left side of his chest there was a huge hole the size of a bowl. This huge wound was torn open by Dongbo Shuiying's long spear. His heart was completely destroyed. Chi, however, the bowl-sized hole in his chest was rapidly growing flesh and blood. He grinned at Dongbo Shuiying and said, "I wanted to find an opportunity to kill you in one fell swoop. I didn't expect that before I could find an opportunity, you would find an opportunity to injure me. However, I am a powerful abyss demon. I am not someone that you humans from the material world can compare to. Since I can't find an opportunity, there is no need for any." The surface of Demon Lavda's body began to change. All the flesh and blood on his body began to shrink, and the scales on his body also began to shrink. The originally sturdy demon had actually become one size smaller. He became about 1.8 meters tall, and the scales on his body became long and narrow. The hole in his chest had completely healed, and the layers of scales on his body were also intact. His aura became even more berserk. What a strong recovery ability. His heart was destroyed, but he actually doesn't care. Dongbu Shuiying was slightly surprised. Many of the transcendents in the sky also cried out in alarm. The heart was the source of qi and blood. If the heart was destroyed, ordinary transcendents would undoubtedly die. Only those who were close to undying might be able to withstand it. Of course, a true undying body would be even more heaven-defying. However, this abyss demon was only at the sky realm, but his vitality and recovery ability was actually so terrifying. It was much stronger than a transcendent native, and Dongbu Shuiying who had awakened his primordial bloodline. If Dongbu Shuiying suffered such an injury, he would have long been dead. Chapter 125. You're dead. Demon laughter roared ferociously. He turned into a phantom and charged towards Dongbu Shuiying. He's fast. Dongbu Shuiying immediately noticed this. At the same time, Dongbu Shuiying raised his spear and faced the demon head-on. Let me see what tricks you have up your sleeves. Don't disappoint me. Water and fire flood dragon attack. Since it was already exposed, he would go all out to kill it. Boom! Boom! The two figures instantly collided and began a fierce battle. Neither of them escaped. After his body became smaller, Demon Lavda's strength did not change. However, his speed and agility had increased significantly. Even under the pressure of the flames, he was still slightly stronger than Dongbu Shuiying. As for Dongbu Shuiying, he used his water and fire flood dragon attack again and again. Strange. It was extremely powerful. It had completely absorbed the advantages of the profound mystery of water and fire. Furthermore, they were superimposed on each other. Regardless of whether it was in terms of strangeness or power, it had increased dramatically. Damn it! Demon Lavda gritted his teeth. The spear tip slashed across one of his arms. Scales scattered and a huge wound appeared on his arm. The wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. This human spear technique is too hard to block. Moreover, it is very powerful. Demon Lavda's eyes were filled with madness. He could not block the water and fire flood dragon attack. Therefore, he simply ignored it. Even if he had to suffer some injuries, he must kill this human. Puchi! Sila! Walla! The battle between the two sides immediately became much more bloody. Demon Lavda's scales were broken and wounds were everywhere. There was even a bloody hole on his body. See? Although Dongbu Shuiying's spear technique was profound and his defense was extremely good, under the demon's reckless close combat attack, his chest was still slashed by the demon's claws. His transcendent qi, which was only at the initial phase of Sky Realm, was easily broken. His ordinary black clothes were also torn. A large wound appeared on his chest and abdomen. The flesh was badly mangled, but these wounds were quickly recovering. Although Dongbu Shuiying's recovery was far from this demon's, this kind of injury was still recovering very quickly. Countless mortals watched nervously and excitedly as the black-robed human youth fought a terrifying demon head-on. They were not at a disadvantage at all. They were also excited to see this. The black-clothed youth's shirt was already in tatters, revealing his strong upper body. His muscles were clearly defined, and there were some wounds on his body that were gradually recovering, but they would soon appear again. On the other hand, the devil's injuries were even more severe. However, the devil's recovery ability was too amazing. His injuries were obviously more severe, but he recovered much faster. The demon is being suppressed. If it wasn't for his quick recovery, he would have been killed long ago. Countless mortals watched nervously. The battle between the two of them was too fast. Only when they collided with each other could they clearly see the appearance of their bodies. In fact, many women were shy and excited when they saw Dongbu Shuiying's exposed upper body. Dongbu Shuiying. Jing Qiu was also watching nervously. Mountain Lord He, faction head Si Kongyang, and City Lady Bu, the three famous demigod overlord-level existences, were extremely happy as they watched. The fusion of the profound mysteries of water and fire already has such power. City Lady Bu drank her wine and laughed. No wonder the true meaning of water and fire could be ranked as the fourth of the 9 grade true meanings in the deity world. True meanings could be divided into 9 grades. This was a ranking system passed down from the deity world. All of the true meanings in the material world and even the deity world were divided into grades. For example, the peak grade 1 and grade 2 true meanings were actually true meanings that only existed in legends. It was almost impossible to comprehend them. In reality, even the heaven-defying true meaning of void cleavage was only a grade 3 true meaning. It was only a grade higher than the true meaning of water and fire. In the entire world, including humans, transcendent natives, and beasts, the most heaven-defying true meaning was only a grade 3 true meaning. This was already extremely amazing. It allowed Qiu Qibai to kill a demigod native at the peak of the Saint Realm, and defeat a human demigod overlord. The majority of those who could comprehend a true meaning, they were merely grade 9, grade 8, or grade 7. Those who could comprehend a grade 6 true meaning of water and fire were already very formidable. A grade 4 true meaning of water and fire was enough for one to look down on everyone. He has only taken the first step. To truly comprehend the true meaning of water and fire is not an easy task, Si Kongyang said modestly. This Dongbu Shuiying is able to take the first step at such a young age. It shouldn't be a big problem for him to comprehend the true meaning of water and fire. Mountain Lord, he laughed. The most important thing is to not stray from the path. If he strays from the path and walks on the path of the true meaning of ice and fire, he will be at a disadvantage. The true meaning of void cleavage was a branch of the true meaning of water and fire. It could only be considered a grade 5 true meaning. The true meaning of void cleavage was a branch of the legendary true meaning of space. After all, it only represented a certain aspect of space. It shouldn't be that bad. Si Kongyang looked down. The profound mystery of water that Dongbu Shuiying is currently using is mainly soft and strange. It doesn't have anything like ice, so he shouldn't walk on the path of the true meaning of ice and fire. Within the battleground, the battle between Dongbu Shuiying and Demon Lavda was incomparably bitter. Dongbu Shuiying was still paying attention to his defense, so his injuries were relatively light. The Demon Lavda only avoided some of his vital points and heavy injuries. He didn't care about those that were a level lower. Of course, the Demon Lavda did his best to avoid serious injuries such as the bowl-sized hole on the left side of his chest, completely destroying his heart. Damn it, I can't go on like this. I can't hold on much longer. Even though Dongbu Shuiying had the upper hand in the battle, he knew that things weren't looking good. The power bloodline eruption consumed a lot of stamina, making it impossible for him to prolong the battle. South Dongbu Shuiying suddenly retreated. Amen? The Demon Lavda was startled. Following that, he laughed sinisterly. Haha, you can't hold on any longer? I knew it. Even if my injuries are heavier than yours, my life force is much stronger than yours. If you continue to fight, you won't be able to win against me. Even as he said that, the Demon Lavda immediately chased after him, not giving Dongbu Shuiying any chance to recover. Not good. Dongbu Shuiying is in trouble. He probably can't hold on any longer after activating his primordial bloodline. Many of the transcendents who were watching the battle from above made this judgment. The primordial bloodline had many innate abilities. Some could increase one's speed, strength, etc. For example, teleportation, the number of times it could be teleported was also limited. Of course, the stronger one was, the more times they could teleport. Only those with the undying body didn't need to use the power bloodline eruption. Their bodies were already undying. Or perhaps, controlling the energy of heaven and earth would consume very little energy. Dongbu Shuiying's power bloodline eruption clearly consumed a lot of stamina. The wind was howling. The Demon Lavda chased after Dongbu Shuiying. Not giving Dongbu Shuiying any chance to recover, I can't let him rest. I must take advantage of this opportunity to crush him and kill him. Lavda's speed was slightly faster than Dongbu Shuiying. Very quickly, he caught up to Dongbu Shuiying, forcing Dongbu Shuiying to constantly change his direction. Very abruptly, a spear appeared in front of Lavda in an instant. Demon Lavda was immediately incomparably frightened. Too fast. Too fast. Clearly, Dongbu Shuiying had made a sudden thrust. Under Demon Lavda's high-speed pursuit, Shuiying suddenly twisted his body and thrust out his spear. Disregarding his falling body, Shuiying twisted his body and thrust out his spear at the same time. The speed of the spear and Lavda's high-speed running speed approached each other at a rapid speed. The tip of the spear carried a terrifying rotation as it pierced towards Lavda's head. The head was definitely a vital point. No, Demon Lavda was frightened and unwilling. He was unwilling to die like this, but this sudden thrust was too fast. He didn't even have the time to raise his arms to block, retreat, or even think. His life instinct, his battle instinct as a demon. This made Lavda take the initiative to receive the spear tip. Pucci. One must know that the spear shaft was slanted upwards, piercing towards Lavda's head. Demon Lavda sped up to receive the spear. The spear tip finally pierced through Lavda's collarbone and came out from his back. To Lavda, this spear was too fast. To Dongbu Shuiying, it was also too fast. Because the enemy was rushing at him at top speed, Dongbu Shuiying didn't have enough time to change his spear thrust and pierce through Lavda's collarbone. The spear carried a strong rotation and pierced a big bloody hole in the collarbone. Even the thick and sturdy scale-covered throat was partially torn open. Bang! The Do-Chi contained within the spear also erupted. But the power of the transcendent Do-Chi was clearly much weaker. Demon Lavda, who was pierced, still rushed towards Dongbu Shuiying at high speed, wanting to kill this damned human. As the demon rushed over, Dongbu Shuiying didn't have enough time to pull out his spear. Dongbu Shuiying put down his spear and fled in a sorry state. A longer and thicker spear appeared in his hand out of thin air. One must know that there were a lot of weapons on the weapon rack. There were many spears of different sizes, suitable for different people. At that time, Dongbu Shuiying had taken away the entire weapon rack. With a 2-meter-long spear pierced through his body, Demon Lavda couldn't continue to chase and could only stop. Damn it! Demon Lavda pulled out the spear, revealing a bloody hole in it. The bloody hole quickly healed. It healed again? Dongbu Shuiying was anxious. This spear had been used once, it would be very difficult to use it again. Demon Lavda's complexion suddenly changed. His body suddenly changed. From a thin and small body, it expanded and returned to its original sturdy appearance. However, his aura was clearly much weaker. His thin and small body was the true form of his explosive power. Dongbu Shuiying was startled for a moment before revealing a happy expression. Haha, your body has been recovering time and time again. You have consumed too much energy and can't hold on any longer? Earlier he had pierced through the demon's chest and destroyed its heart. With such a terrifying injury, Dongbu Shuiying was afraid that he would die instantly. However, not only did the demon recover quickly, he even entered an explosive state. After that, he sustained a large number of more serious injuries. Even Dongbu Shuiying's heart trembled when he saw those injuries. However, the demon was able to recover easily. This made Dongbu Shuiying feel that this demon's vitality was too terrifying. But in reality, no matter how strong one's vitality was, there was a limit. The many injuries it had sustained had consumed a lot of its vitality. In the end, Dongbu Shuiying's spear had heavily injured it. In order to recover, it had used up all the demonic energy in its body. Even its vitality was unable to hold on any longer, and it was forced to return to its normal form. Recovery also had a price. It wasn't unlimited. Even if it was the legendary undying body, if it was destroyed time and time again, it would still die. Prepared to die, Dongbu Shuiying held the new spear and immediately chased after it. Demon Lavda immediately tried to escape in panic. However, under the suppression of the flames in its normal form, its speed was obviously inferior to Dongbu Shuiying. Pucci. With the rapid consumption of energy, Demon Lavda's strength dropped rapidly. In just 3 moves, Dongbu Shuiying pierced through Demon Lavda's head. Barefooted and bare-chested, Dongbu Shuiying's body was covered with many shallow wounds. He was holding a spear with one hand, and the spear was pierced through Demon Lavda's corpse. The 9th match victory. Demon dead. Wow! The countless mortals who were watching the battle erupted in cheers. The cheers were so loud that it was as if the roof of the Hall of Life and Death was going to be blown away. They looked at the human youth who was holding the demon's corpse in his spear, and felt extremely satisfied. These mortals would probably never forget this scene for the rest of their lives. Let alone the mortals, even the transcendents who were watching the battle felt their blood boiling. Most of them had never seen a demon before, let alone someone like Dongbu Shuiying who was holding a demon's corpse in his spear. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.